Hey gang, this is Ron from ITMasterKey.com, and in this video series and course, we're going to be going through some fundamentals for IT. So if you're a beginner, if you don't really have that much experience with information technology, or if you're just trying to get a refresher on information technology, this is the course for you. So this course is going to be going over a multitude of things. So no matter if you're taking a CompTIA ITF Plus exam, or if you just want a refresher or just want an introduction to IT, I got you covered. So in this actual course, we're going to be going over 6 core topics. So those topics are IT terminology and concepts, infrastructure, application and software, software development, database fundamentals, and security. So let's go ahead and get into the first video. Hopefully you enjoy. If you want a full course, or if you're enrolled in a full course, I'm proud of you. But if you're looking for a full course for IT fundamentals, head over to ITMasterKey.com and enroll. So this video series is just going to be the lectures. Over at ITMasterKey.com, we're actually going to break it down a lot more. And it's also going to be simulations and a bunch of practice tests to get you ready for the actual exam. So you guys wanted IT fundamentals. I listened to you, so here it is. Enjoy. All right, again, the next topic in our video series and course is going to be the importance of data. Nowadays, your data is considered an asset. So your cell phone, for instance, right? Your cell phone isn't just something that you call people on, that you text people on. Your cell phone is pretty much like your digital wallet, your digital portfolio, your digital lifeline, right? Most people can't really operate without their cell phone because they have personal information on there. They got passwords, they got GPS. That's another thing. You know, most people, if you don't have a GPS, you can't get to where you're going. So that's why data has become an asset. And data is simply defined as factual information such as measurements or statistics used as a basis for reasoning, discussion, or calculation. So a lot of companies, right, love your data. Facebook loves your data. Google loves your data. Instagram loves your data. The FBI loves your data. All right, so if you think that you're surfing the web or you're doing things and nobody's watching you, good luck with that. All right. Now, so a lot of people that are watching you, it may not be for nefarious or malicious reasons, but there is somebody watching you. And the reason that organizations want to watch you is because of advertising, right? So with your data, somebody can get your entire life, pinpoint your location, where you work, your likes and your dislikes. So with data now being looked at as an asset, it's super important that in a perfect world that your data is always private and always secure. Now, it's getting more and more important to have secure data and your privacy as well. Now, that's going to be up to you. We can talk about data privacy and security a little bit later on, but right now we want to just talk about data being an asset. We're going to go ahead and go to the next slide because you should understand that data is your lifeblood. With the right amount of data, somebody can literally steal your identity and become who you are. All right, so let's talk about intellectual property. So these courses that are over at ITMasterKey.com, my YouTube channel, all of the things that I create digitally are digital products, right? Meaning that it's not something physical that you can touch, but it's something that you can digitally engage with. So intellectual property is super important. So that little guy on the bottom left that's smiling, that's me, should be pretty close, I think. That would be intellectual property. This entire lecture would be my intellectual property. All right. So the actual definition of intellectual property is creations of the mind, such as inventions, literary and artistic works, designs, symbols, names, and images used in commerce, also known as business. So let's talk about the differences between trademarks, copyrights, and patents. So you see my logo, and then you see some other super recognizable logos, right? So you got McDonald's, Nike, you got Starbucks. So if any of you guys have seen Coming to America, right? There's a restaurant in Coming to America called McDowell's, right? In real life, McDowell's would have probably had a problem. They would have had a problem. They didn't have a problem in the movie because it was called McDowell's. They had some different, whatever McDonald's did, they kind of did the opposite, but it was pretty much the same damn restaurant. So trademarks allows you to separate yourself from other people and not allow people to use your logo or your phrase without some kind of compensation, right? So McDonald's, everybody, no matter where you are in the world, that logo right there is McDonald's. No matter where you are in the world, everybody knows the Nike symbol. If you want some coffee, drop in the comments what the hell that lady's supposed to represent. I don't know who that lady is, or if that's like if the lady is the founder is a lady or what. I don't know what that logo represents. But if you want coffee, you know that Starbucks, the green logo with the lady in the front, is for Starbucks. So those are trademarks, right? Now copyrights. Whenever you watch a movie, whenever you go to a movie, it's usually a big warning to say, hey, FBI warning, this movie, this material is copywritten, right? So if something is copywritten, it means that you cannot copy, you can't license, you can't use that information without explicit consent from whoever the creator is, okay? So trademarks is usually logos and phrases and stuff like that. Copyrights is, hey, I'm gonna actually ask you, can I have the copyrights to this so I can use it in a movie or use it in a music video? So let's just say that in this video, I want to play The Baby or something in this actual lecture, right? Soon as I upload this lecture to the internet, I'm going to get hit with a copyright, meaning that, hey, you didn't ask this artist if you could use that music, or if I want to use some clips from a movie, I'll get hit with copyright as well. Patents. So patents, if you watch Shark Tank, right, most of the time they'll ask, hey, do you have a patent on this? And they'll say patent pending or something like that. So a patent just means that I have an idea, this is what I want to create, or I've actually created something and I want to put a patent on and pretty much lock down this design so nobody else can make and create this design. Make sense? Good. All right, so we kind of touched on this a little bit before when we were talking about data being an asset. So data, this is kind of a big thing with Facebook because, like I said, Facebook collects a bunch of your data and then sells it to advertisers. Like, hey, this guy is in a group about sneakers. He is always liking pictures about sneakers. So let me sell this data to Foot Locker and to East Bay and to Foot Action and to Nikes, and start advertising and marketing to this guy because this is what he likes. This girl is liking pictures of Greece, and then she likes a picture of France, and then she likes a picture of Chicago, and she likes a picture of Alaska. All right, so maybe she wants to travel or likes to travel. So let's start sending her airfare and hotels.com and stuff like that, right? So it's like this says, if you ever feel like somebody's watching you on the internet, somebody's collecting that information. For example, every time you type something into Google, that is being collected and then it's being sold to businesses to retarget advertising to you. That's just, nothing scary, but that's just what it is. So if you've ever noticed that, hey, you start looking up old muscle cars, and then next time you go on Google, on the side it's a bunch of frames for 1970 Chevelles, or it's tires for 80s Trans Am or something like that, right? So they use all that to collect and pretty much build a profile on you to figure out, okay, how can we advertise to this person? Because you have to understand those big companies like Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and a lot of those different types of social media platforms are highly dependent on advertising dollars. That's pretty much how they make their money. So they can use your browsing habits to advertise products that you may be likely to buy, improve your browsing experience. They say they improve it by pretty much showing you stuff that you're more likely to like. So if they notice, like I said, that you like cars in your Facebook feed or Instagram feed, you'll start seeing more muscle cars. You'll start seeing more mechanic hobby stuff like that, okay? And last but not least, they can create a database of customers that are like you to start advertising to them as well. Okay, this guy is 30 years old. He's from Detroit. He likes this. He likes that. He works here. Okay, I wonder if there's more people like him, or if most people that are from Detroit, if they do like this, and they kind of try and make a demographic. So, gang, I already know that you learned more than you knew about data before you clicked on this video. If you're watching this video on YouTube, make sure that you comment, like, and subscribe, because in the actual course, we're about to go into a story time and just kind of drill all this stuff home. If you want to enroll inside of the full course, you can head over to itmastery.com. Not only will you get lectures, but you'll get scenario questions, you'll get practice exams, you'll get simulations, you'll get a more immersive experience over there. If you're already in the course, go ahead and go to the next lecture and you'll see what I'm talking about. Other than that, I'll see you in class. Hey gang, it's Rob, and I want to welcome you to the first episode and the first lecture in our web series and course. So this course is going to be for people who want a strong foundation in IT, so the fundamentals of IT. So if you've been preparing for A+ and feel like maybe A+ is a little bit too much for you and you want a precursor or a prerequisite to A+, or if you just want to get a little bit better or feel a little bit more comfortable with IT in general, this is the video series and course for you. So to knock stuff out really fast, I'm just going to make sure that you guys know that this first lecture, right? Don't get scared. Don't get nervous. Don't act weird. Just because it's some numbers doesn't mean that it's going to be difficult, right? So we're going to break down the way that computers speak, the way that computers talk to each other on the network, just to give you a good representation and a good introduction to how things work. Ready to get into it? Let's get into it. So, notional systems, right? First thing we want to talk about is binary. So binary is the language that computers speak in. Not English, not French, not Spanish, but binary. So that is the way that computers talk to each other. That's how they compute things. That's how they figure things out. So binary is a system of ones and zeros, or ons and offs. So 1 will represent on, while 0 will represent off. Real simple. If you didn't know before, binary is the language of computers. That simple. Let that sear in your brain if you didn't know. What's binary? If you want to look cool to somebody, tell somebody, hey, did you know that computers, I don't know if they'll think you're cool if you, anyway, so binary is the system that devices and PCs use to talk to each other. Ones and zeros. That is the language of computers. Sound good? Next up, so hexadecimal is an easier representation because it's less characters and less binary values than binary. If you write out something in binary, it's going to be a lot longer than if you've written it in hexadecimal. Right there is an example of hexadecimal, and an example of something that uses hexadecimal would be your MAC address, MAC, your MAC address. So your MAC address is your physical address. Let's go back. Binary is the language that computers use, right? And then the MAC address, which is represented in hexadecimal, is going to be the physical address of that computer or that device. Every device has a MAC address, and devices use binary to communicate to each other. Sound good? Last but not least is the decimal format. So a good example of decimal would be your IP address. Anything that connects to a network or anything that connects to the internet needs an IP address. Binary is the language that computers use. Hexadecimal, an example of that, is your MAC address, which is your physical address. Your IP address is your address on the network. So if you're on ESPN.com, if you're on itmasterkey.com, if you're on Google.com, that network, those devices know where to send the information that you're looking for. Okay? So binary is what? Very good. What is a example of a hexadecimal address? Very good. What is an example of a decimal address? Very good. And just in case y'all wasn't saying that while I was asking, binary is a language that computers talk in. Your MAC address is an example of a hexadecimal address, and that's a physical address. Then in decimal format is an IP address. All right, so that IP address is a version 4 IP address, which is represented in decimal, while a version 6 IP address is going to be presented in hexadecimal. You don't need to know that per se, but that's just a little bit more info for you. All right, so before you watch this lecture, you probably didn't know any of these things. Now you do. Pat yourself on the back. You should be proud. All right, guys, so in the next episode of our video lectures and our video course and our full course, we're going to be talking about data types. So there are 5 common data types. In this quick lecture, we're going to go over those data types. Then we're going to go through a small practical exercise if you're inside the course. If you're not inside the course, then you need to head over to itmasterkey.com and enroll inside of the course. And then after that, we're going to go through a quick little quiz. Let's go ahead and get into it. All right, so data types. So the first data types are going to be character or CHR. So characters are fixed length fields. It can be letters, numbers, or other characters, as long as they're supported in whatever database that you're using. Next is going to be strings, which is just a sequence of characters or numbers, or a sequence of characters and numbers. Next up is integers. So this data type represents a range of mathematical integers and are represented as a group of binary digits called bits. So quick quiz. In our first lecture, in our first video, we talked about binary. Do we remember what binary is? Of course you do. Binary is just simply the language of devices. It's how that computers actually talk to each other, the ones and zeros. Next up is floats. These are used to represent high precision fractional values. Last but not least is Boolean. I don't know why I said it like that, but Boolean is true or false values. So the 5 data types are character, strings, integers, floats, and Boolean. So be proud of yourself that you just learned 5 new data types that you didn't know before. So when it comes to storage is a really big deal. You know, how much stuff can I save? How many videos can I save? How much music can I save? So on and so forth. Now, you know, when computers first came out, don't quote me, but I want to say one of the first computers only had like either 512 megabytes or kilobytes. And pretty much it was like nobody's ever going to need more space in that. Nobody's ever going to need more space in that. But now that we got HD movies, we got video games, we got all this different stuff, you need more and more space. So most phones now are at least 60 to 128 gigs, right? So we said that we were talking about kilobytes and megabytes, but most phones now have way more space on your actual cell phone, and then most PCs and laptops have at least 500 to a terabyte, if not more. So, but most PCs and laptops, you're going to be hard pressed to find a new PC or laptop without 500 gigabytes of space minimum, because, well, like I said, everything going on and file size is getting so much bigger. If you have anything less than that, you're going to run out of space really fast. So, real simple, going down the line, the smallest unit of data or the smallest storage unit is going to be bits, right? There's 8 bits in a byte. There's 1,024 bits, 1,024 bytes in a kilobyte, 1,024 kilobytes in a megabyte, 1,024 megabytes in a gigabyte, 1,024 gigabytes in a terabyte, then 1,024 terabytes in a petabyte. So we also have zettabytes, but you don't have to worry about that now. But terabytes It's pretty much what you're going to see now as far as for home computing. If you have a petabyte, I mean, hey, you can do what you want to, but if you have a petabyte, that's kind of doing a ridiculous, that's doing a lot, especially if you just movies and stuff like that. But hey, who knows? Like I said, with the more higher resolutions, with the more in-depth graphics, with the bigger file sizes, maybe a petabyte one day is going to be no big deal. But right now, it's still pretty impressive, right? But right now, a terabyte should be a couple terabytes, because the laptops that I have, most of them all have a terabyte, and then the PC that I have has 3 terabytes, and that's doing pretty good. But like I said, you know, I have external drives and stuff like that you can definitely fill up a terabyte pretty easy, right? Pretty easy. So over time, if you don't delete stuff, if you're not paying attention, you can definitely fill that up. But this is pretty much just from the smallest to the biggest storage units, how big. So we start from bits and go all the way up to petabytes, okay? And if you're in the course, we're actually going to go through a practice quiz to drill this home to make sure that you fully get what you need to get. If you're watching this on YouTube, no big deal. Just make sure that you are aware of these different sizes. If you knew this, great. If it's a refresher for you, no big deal. If you've never seen it, just make sure that you drill this in your head. But like I said, if you're in the course, which you should be, make sure that you drill this down pretty good, okay? All right, now we're going to talk about throughput. So throughput is important when we're talking about internet, especially with what we're going through as far as the C word. Everybody, or a lot of people, had to transition working from home and also getting educated from home. So your internet speed was super important. If you were using a kilobit internet, I feel sorry for you, because that's actually like dial-up internet, and it's pretty slow, and most websites is going to take forever for those to load. So just understand that throughput is pretty much how fast data can travel. All right, so how fast data can travel. All right, so how fast it takes for something to be processed, right? So we got megabits per second and we got gigabits per second. Now the internet connection that you're probably using right now is megabits per second. When we get into the gigabit speeds, then we're talking about fiber. All right, so most of the time, and terabit speed is super crazy fast, right? In local neighborhoods, you're not going to really find that. You can find gigabit speeds. It's not as wide as megabits, but newer neighborhoods and stuff like that have gigabit speed internet. But for the most part, most of you guys are probably using megabits per second, which is pretty fast, which is fast enough. The internet that I'm using at my home and in my office is not the office. No, at the office it is gigabit. No, I think about it. At the office it's gigabit, but right now I'm at home. It's megabits, right? So you got gigabit, super fast. Terabit is that's just pretty much before you even think about damn clicking it, it's already popped up on your screen. It's just lightning crazy fast. Okay. All right. So last but not least, processing speed. So let's say sometimes it's kind of hard to figure out, damn, what kind of computer do I need? So we figured out the storage. Okay, we figured out, okay, probably 500 gigabytes to a terabyte, preferably a terabyte of storage. What's the next biggest thing? So the next biggest thing is going to be processing speed of your CPU. If you have a CPU that is measured in megahertz, that's a really slow processor, right? So we want to make sure that it's in gigahertz. The more gigahertz, the faster the processing speed. All right, megahertz, no bueno. Gigahertz, great, but we want to make sure as many gigahertz as possible, pretty much so it'll be sustainable, right? So it's going to be good right now, and then as new technology comes out, as new things come out, as you're trying to add stuff to your laptop or your PC, it'll be able to handle all those extra processes. But at the same time, I don't want you spending 30 grand on a damn laptop, but just make sure it has enough gigahertz to do whatever you're trying to accomplish. Hey gang, it's Rob once again, and in this video lecture we're going to be talking about input and output devices. So in our last couple of lectures we talked about binary, we talked about data types, in this lecture, we're going to talk about different types of devices, what would be considered input and what would be considered output. Let's go ahead and get straight into it. Since you guys are super smart, I'm pretty sure that you will be able to look at the things on the left and the things on the right and understand why the things on the left will be considered input, while the things on the right will be considered output. So I'm going to give you some time to dwell on that, and then we'll talk about it as a family. All right, enough time. So a keyboard is considered an input device because you input stuff. So you type out your name, you type out a calculation, you type out whatever you want to type out, and you input that and you give that information to the device, your cell phone, whatever it is, right? Go to the next one. So pointing devices, your mouse. So your mouse, you input clicks and the computer gives you feedback, you input something. Scanners, put the stuff on the scanner glass, then it scans that information into your device. Microphone, you put audio into the microphone and it takes that and puts it inside of the computer or the device, whatever you're using. And on the inverse of that, a speaker would be output. So the microphone, you input your stuff and then it comes out of the speakers. Display devices, output an image. Printers, output papers or whatever else you wanted to print. Make sense? Very good. Of course it does. You guys are super smart, so this is too easy for you. So look down this list. These will be considered both input and output devices. Okay. So a flash drive, you can put stuff and save stuff on the flash drive, and you actually take stuff out of the flash drive as well. Okay. External hard drive is just simply a hard drive that's outside of a computer or stuff like that. So it's an external hard drive outside of the computer case. So you can put stuff on it, save stuff on it, or take stuff off of it. All the rest of these are the same. So a CD, put stuff on, take stuff off. Network attached storage, or NAS, is simply just a hard drive or a server that's attached to the network and that you can save stuff to it or take stuff off of it as long as you're on that network, as long as you're connected to that network. Memory card, same thing. Mobile media players, smartphones, and fax machines. All of these devices, you can put stuff on it or you can take stuff out. Make sense? Of course it does. Hey gang, you just learned or you just reinforced different input and output devices. So our second domain is going to be infrastructure. So how things are set up from the foundation all the way up to the most complex parts of an organization, a network, so on and so forth. So you got a lot of information in the first domain, and pretty much the stuff that we talked about in the first domain, this is just going to build on that stuff. So you ready? Let's get right into it. All right, gang, in this episode of our web series and lecture, we're going to go over input and output interfaces. We're going to talk about a little bit of networking and a couple of different ways to install different types of devices. Let's go ahead and get into it. So in networking, right? A long time ago, if you use AOL when it first came out, 9 times out of 10, you were going to be using dial-up, meaning that you were getting on the internet via your telephone line. And if you use dial-up internet, the little connector, the little plastic piece on the end of that was called an RJ11. Now, most days, or most people, if they're using internet now, I hope, fingers crossed, if you're still using dial-up, God bless you, but most people now are using Ethernet, and that is a picture of an Ethernet cable at the bottom of the screen, and that little connector on the end of there is called an RJ45. Now with networking, we got a couple different ways to actually connect to things and send information, right? So 2 things that are a little bit newer and are pretty much on most devices and most cell phones for sure is Bluetooth. So Bluetooth, just like that little thing in the top right corner, if you turn that on, you can send things wirelessly, or you can use devices wirelessly, right, through Bluetooth capability. Now, near field communication, or NFC, is a proximity technology. So you can use that for payments. So if you got like Apple Pay or Google Pay, if you have an NFC enabled device, whether that's your cell phone or tablet, you can actually wave your smartphone or your cell phone up against a payment register. It's pretty much at every store or places you go, whether it's Walgreens, the mall, McDonald's. You can actually use NFC, near field communications, and just wave your device up against the payment kiosk, and it'll actually take the payment out. Okay? All right, so here's a few peripherals. All right, so peripheral is a big ass word. It just means that stuff that's outside of your laptop, right? So a printer would be a peripheral. A scanner would be a peripheral. A mouse would be a peripheral. A keyboard would be a peripheral. A mic would be a peripheral. All right, so just the additional attachments, the additional devices, just remember that those are peripherals. Now, this list is just a couple different peripheral connection types and technologies. So FireWire, you only find that as much. Some cameras still use a FireWire connection, but mostly FireWire has been replaced by USB. Most devices are USB. FireWire, like I said, is used on some cameras, but for the most part, it's been replaced by USB. Another one is a Thunderbolt, and that was introduced as a much faster way to transfer data, download stuff, so on and so forth than USB. Then, like we were talking about in the previous slide, you have Bluetooth. That's another way that you can transfer data. One very old way that we used to transfer data and stuff like that, or use devices, was RF. Now, RF is still used, and one of the biggest things that you probably used before is a remote. All right, only thing about RF or radio frequency, it needs a line of sight, good line of sight, to actually be able to not block that signal, right? So it needs a clear path in between you and whatever it's trying to point to. Now, even most remotes use Bluetooth, right? So if you got a Fire Stick or you got some kind of other remote, a lot of times, or if you're using anything, it's probably going to be Bluetooth if it's a newer device. Make sense? All right. All right, gang. So as far as those peripherals, right? So let's say we got some new speakers. Let's say we got a new mouse. Let's say we got a new printer. There's different ways to install those peripherals, right? So the old school way, a lot of times would be they would come with an installation CD. You pop the installation CD in there, next, boom, you have your device installed. But most devices now are plug and play, which means that the drivers are actually on that device. And all the driver is of some software that actually tells the two devices, hey, I'm a computer, you're a keyboard, this is how we work together. One more time, a driver is just a software that tells the two devices how to work together. So just like the installation CD, it had drivers on it to make that happen. But now, just to make things simple, you plug it in and it'll usually pop up with a notification, hey, this device is installing, hey, this device is installing drivers, so on and so forth. Some other devices, it may be IP based. So we're going to get into IPs in a few lectures, but just really quickly, an IP is just your address on the network. So you may have to put in your IP address to either configure the device or to make the device work or work a little bit better. A web-based configuration just means that we may have to go on a website, we may have to go on a portal and set some stuff up. All right, gang, so in this episode and this part of our video series and course, we're going to talk about internet service types. Let's get straight into it. So as we talked about in previous lectures, we got a couple of different ways to get on the internet, right? So we got telephone, which is dial-up. It's kind of old. If you still got dial-up, hey, no judgment here, but it's going to be rough getting on YouTube. It's going to be rough doing anything that is enjoyable on the internet, right? So most people now have Ethernet. So Ethernet is pretty much the standard for most people. You're probably connected with an Ethernet cable to whatever device, or your router is connected to a Ethernet cable, so on and so forth, right? So one thing that we haven't covered yet is fiber optic. So fiber optic is super fast internet, right? Super fast internet. You can get up to gigabits per second on a fiber optic network. Now, a lot of newer neighborhoods and things like that have fiber optic going to homes, but most of us live in places where we don't have fiber optic capabilities, right? So going from slowest to fastest, dial up, of course, slowest, Ethernet, pretty good, and fiber optic is going to be super duper fast, right? So we already talked about Bluetooth and NFC. So let's talk about Wi-Fi. So with Wi-Fi, you got access points. It's just a wireless network. So if you want to walk around your house, if you want to have your laptop on your back porch, you can rock out on your front porch. You can have internet access wherever you are, or if you're in a coffee shop, or if you're at McDonald's, you can have that access through Wi-Fi. Just in case you missed the lectures before, you need to watch this whole damn video series. But in case you missed it, or in case we need to brush back up on it, Bluetooth, simply put, is just a wireless ability to send data or just to connect devices without a wire, right? So you can use Bluetooth. NFC is usually used for payment, so you can use NFC to pay for something with proximity. So if you have NFC enabled on a device or on your phone, and you have your credit card tied to it, or your PayPal or something like that, you can use that at a McDonald's, you can use that at a Starbucks, and you can use that device to actually pay for whatever you're trying to pay for. Now, with Wi-Fi, you're good, right? Most times you're good. It's not dependent on you being directly next to the access point, or being directly next to the router, or being close to wherever the actual signal is coming from. Now, of course, the closer you are to the signal, the stronger your internet and the faster your internet is probably going to be. But something else that people have is called satellite internet, right? Now this is kind of like if you have no other option, right? No other option. You know that nobody else is messing with you. You can't get Verizon, you can't get Comcast, you can't get Xfinity, you can't get nothing. You got to get this satellite shit, right? That is very dependent on something called line of sight, meaning that you have to be properly aligned and not have any obstructions in between you and the satellite. And that means any damn thing. So if there's some trees in the way, you're either going to have a bad connection or no connection. If it's a cloudy day, bad connection, no connection, so on and so forth. So without line of sight, you have a pretty rough day. And even if you do have good line of sight, it's not going to be that fast, because it takes a long time for the signal to bounce from you to a satellite that's, I don't know, millions of miles away, how far it is in the atmosphere. So satellite is kind of like I gotta have it, and honestly, for that, it would just be, hey, I'm gonna send these emails, hey, I'm gonna do something. You're not about to be browsing, you're not about to be doing nothing extra, you're not about to be watching Netflix or YouTube or none of that. Hey gang, in the next episode of our video series and course, we're gonna go through a really quick lecture about computing devices and the IoT, or Internet of Things. Let's go straight into it. So IoT, simply put, is the devices that connect to the internet and all the other devices that it may be connected to. So in 2020, pretty much everything is smart. Everything can connect to the internet. They have refrigerators, home appliances that can connect to the internet. It'll tell you when you're running low on milk. It'll tell you when something has expired. It'll actually, some of them are actually connected to different stores, whether it's Amazon or Kroger, and it'll actually order the food for you, and it'll be at your doorstep. But some of these are the list of devices that would be considered part of the Internet of Things family. So like I said, home appliances, we got smart washers and dryers as well, home automation devices, things that refrigerator would be considered automation because it automatically, that's all automation is, when it does something automatically without any intervention from you, right? So it'll order the milk, it'll order the eggs, it'll order whatever you need, and it'll show up at your doorstep. You got thermostats. You got thermostats to where you can have an app on your phone. You can turn the temperature up, turn the temperature down, or if you forgot to turn the heat off, you forgot to turn the stove off, you can turn these things off through the Internet of Things. Security systems, we pretty much know that. You can lock the doors, unlock the doors, make the alarm sound, look at the webcam through your cell phone or through other devices. Monitoring cars, that's another thing. As far as Tesla has what is it called? I want to say it's called valet, where the car will come to you. It'll park itself, and there's a lot of other cars as well that'll do that now. I can't think of nothing, but Tesla is what's coming to mind right now. IP cameras, we already know what IP stands for. It's IP addressing. So when I was saying those security systems, that would pretty much, a security system would be part of the IP cameras, right? So you can actually look at things. Streaming media devices, so that's Fire Sticks, that's things like that, right? Medical devices, that's another thing that is a part of Internet of Things, whether it's something personal, where it's maybe something that monitors your insulin levels and it say, hey man, it's time for you to take your insulin, or it can actually send a notification to your doctor like, hey, this person's heartbeat is irregular, so on and so forth. So, but the Internet of Things, it makes your life easier, right? A lot easier. Now, when we get into more difficult courses or more complex courses, we'll talk about the security aspect that needs to be a part of all these things. So you don't only have the convenience, but you also have the security. But we're actually going to touch on that a little bit later in this course. But if you want to get inside of a cybersecurity course, you know where to go. But real quick, like I was saying, Internet of Things, there's going to be a list of things that we're talking about. What's something else? In the comments, drop something else that would be part of the IoT or Internet of Things, and tell me what it does and why you think it's a part of the Internet of Things. All right? All right, gang. So, hey, gang, in this episode of our video series and course, we're going to go through networking concepts. So, real simple overview, right? What is an IP address? An IP address is your logical address on the network, meaning that you can't actually touch it, you can't feel it, but it's your address. That's the address that the network is going to use to figure out, okay, this is where this email is supposed to go. This is where this information is supposed to go. So an IP address is your logical address on the network. And just remember, every device, cell phone, game console, refrigerator, washing machine, thermostat, anything that connects to the internet is going to have an IP address. It's your logical address on the network. Same thing with the MAC address. The logical address is your IP address. The physical address of the device is going to be your MAC address. IP address, logical address, physical address is your MAC address. Every device has a MAC address. Every device has a MAC address. All right. Every device has a MAC address. So if the device can connect to the internet, it needs an IP address, and it also needs a MAC address. The MAC address is from the manufacturer. The MAC address is from the manufacturer. All right. Just want to make sure you guys understand that. So here's a couple of different devices that we're going to be talking about as far as networking goes and stuff like that. A router. So a router is what's going to get you on the internet. So your router takes you from your local network onto a bigger network, from your local network onto the internet. And your router is going to use IP addresses to figure out where things go. Oh, let me send this here, let me send that there. Okay? A switch is going to be used inside your network to connect multiple devices together. So router is from network to network. A switch is used inside of a network, and a switch is going to use the physical address, your MAC address, to forward information to figure out where stuff goes. Okay? Access point. So we already talked about Wi-Fi, stuff like that. So if we have a router, if we have a big area that we're trying to pretty much extend coverage to, we can have our main router, and then we can have access points that is connected to that router, right? So we can pretty much expand the coverage, so we can make sure that we have a wide area of coverage, right? So we can have an access point downstairs, an access point upstairs, or we can have an access point in HR, have access point in finance, so on and so forth. So access point gives people access to the network, and it can extend the coverage of a network. A firewall, simply put, it can permit or deny certain traffic. So we talking about where does stuff go, routers, switches, this stuff sends stuff here, this thing sends stuff there. A firewall can actually stop stuff like, hey, I don't want this to come in, whether it's going from rules that you set up or it's rules that the organization set up. It can permit or deny. So a firewall just stops stuff, or it allows stuff to come onto your network. All right, so network communication, we talked about local, and we talked about the internet. So local area network is your local network. Your LAN is your local network. If you at home, that is your local network. If you at work, that is your local network. As soon as you leave that network, right, you go through the router, you go to another network, you are on a WAN. A WAN is a wide area network. The internet is a WAN. The internet is just a huge collection of interconnected LANs. All right, so it's connecting LANs to each other, right? So a router is your gateway onto the internet. It's your gateway to the WAN. DNS. So we're talking about the internet. DNS, or domain name server, your domain name server. We'll get into ports a little bit later. The domain name server translates a website name into an IP address. Remember, everything has an IP address. Every website has an IP address because every website runs on a web server. All right, so every website runs on a physical device, a web server, but it needs a logical address, an IP address, to be able to send and receive information. And the DNS was came up with because instead of you having to remember a bunch of random numbers, you can just remember ESPN.com. You can just remember itmasterkey.com. You can just remember google.com instead of the numbers that's related to that. Okay, if you don't know about the numbers, the ones and zeros, binary, you need to go to the first video in this series and watch it. The third domain is going to talk about applications and software. So we know in today's world, it's pretty much an app for anything you want to do. So we're going to talk about how applications, whether it's on a cell phone, whether it's on a PC, how that is actually developed, how that works, and how different software actually is compatible with certain things, not compatible with other things, and different varieties of software as well. Sound like a plan? Let's get into it. All right, so the next topic we're going to talk about in our video series and course is operating systems. So whatever you're using right now to watch this video has an operating system. No matter if it's on a cell phone, if it's on a tablet, if it's on a PC, it has a operating system. The operating system, simply put, is what operates the system. All right, let's dive just a little bit deeper into that. All right, so just like this says, operating system is a powerful and usually large program that controls and manages the hardware and other software on the computer. All computers and computer-like devices require operating systems, including laptops, tablets, desktops, smartwatches. All of those things have an operating system. If you have a smart fridge, if you have a smart this, a smart that, all of these things have an operating system. So, two different variances in the operating system is the GUI or the GUI and the command line. So the GUI or the GUI, the graphical user interface, is what we're using right now. So it's pretty pictures and buttons and stuff that we can click on and graphics that we can actually see, right? Now the reverse of that is the command line or the command prompt. So everything that can be done on the graphical user interface can be done in the command line. So the command line is just words, letters. If you're using Windows, it's going to be a black background with white letters, and you have to have the proper command and the proper syntax, and you have to put in the proper commands. If you want to create a folder, you have to know the command for that folder. So instead of, if you're on Windows, right clicking, then say new folder, you have to know the actual command for that actual thing that can be executed. Okay, so real simple. Graphical user interface, graphics, stuff like that. Command line, you have to know the actual commands. It's going to be words and commands, and each one of those commands is going to execute something for you, right? So something called Linux, a Linux operating system, that was the basis of Linux. It was going to be a lot of commands, all right, a lot of words, a lot of different letters, and some people were actually scared or shied away from Linux because that stuff looks scary, it looks creepy, they don't know what the hell is this. But nowadays, the Linux base, and even back then, it had a graphical user interface. So with the command line, you can manipulate things, you can move things, you can do things, and if you know exactly what you're doing, the command line can be a lot more powerful than the actual GUI or the graphical user interface. But just simply put, what I want you to get from this is, what the hell is the difference between a graphical and the command line? The graphical has graphics, pretty stuff you can click on. The command line, you have to know the commands, okay? So no matter what operating system that you're using, you're going to need a file system. So the operating system is what operates the system. Then the file system is what organizes all the files and folders inside that operating system. So once you download an operating system, you have to apply a file system. So on this slide, these are the file system by default. Depending on what you're trying to do, what your ultimate goal is, you can put different file systems on different operating systems. But by default, as of this recording, these are the file systems that you're going to get. So for example, if you have a Macintosh or a Mac, you're going to get the HFS Plus, the hierarchical file system. Linux is going to be the fourth extended file system, or ext4. Microsoft, which is probably what you guys are using right now, or maybe not, don't matter. You know, if it's Apple, Macintosh, whatever, you're going to be using NTFS for the newer versions of Windows, and you're going to be using FAT32 for the older versions. Okay, so we talked about operating systems, graphical user interface, stuff like this. There's pretty pictures and stuff you can click. Command line is the actual commands. You have to know what to type in. Then the file system is what actually organizes the files and the folders, and it has to be applied to your operating system or it won't function properly. It won't boot up. It won't do what it's supposed to do. In this episode of our video series and course, we're going to go over different types of software, mainly focusing on productivity software and some collaboration software. Okay, so a lot of this stuff you've probably used before. So productivity software, stuff that makes you more productive. So one type of software is word processing software. You've probably used Microsoft Word. You type in stuff, you might need to do a book report, you might need to do a presentation, stuff like that. So you go ahead and put your stuff in Microsoft Word. Now that isn't the only word processing software, but it's the most recognizable, right? But you can also use stuff like WordPerfect or Google Docs and stuff like that. Now, spreadsheet software, everybody's favorite, Excel would be an example of a spreadsheet. So you can make rosters, you can make calculations, and it can all be in one spreadsheet, right? So it can put in different formulas and you can figure stuff out. Microsoft Excel, like I said, is pretty much the I wouldn't say premier, but that's like the most damn renowned one that pretty much everybody knows, right? Presentation software. Now, if you've been around computers at all, you probably had to do a presentation software, whether if it was for school, if it was for a business, if it was for your job. You've used PowerPoint before, so you can put pictures in there. You can do slides. You can pretty much present the stuff in a way where people can understand what's going on. Web browsers. So a web browser, simply put, allows you to surf the web, browse the web. You can use Chrome, you can use Safari, you can use Firefox, you can use Microsoft Edge, you can use various different browsers, and it depends on which one you're most comfortable with. Most times, whichever one you use the most, or whichever one you use at first, is probably the one that you're gonna rock out with. Well, maybe not, because I started off with Microsoft Internet Explorer, and I can't remember the last time I opened up Internet Explorer, or now it's called Edge. But simply put, these are really recognizable and popular types of productivity software. Now, especially since the damn C virus dropped, we're having to do a lot more collaboration and a lot more working from home, whether it's emails, whether if it's Zoom calls, whether if it's conferencing calls, but a lot of stuff you're doing from home. And some people, your kids are working from home as well. Some kids like it, some kids don't. But to me, I was talking to one of my students that was saying, my students, or not my students, my kids won't do this damn homework. They say they get bored. It's not blah, blah, blah. But it's like, hey man, if you can goddamn be on Instagram or YouTube for 8 hours, you can sit down and do some math homework or something. But that's just my opinion. But anyway, collaboration software. So emails, right? You got Gmail, you got Outlook, you got a bunch of different types of email clients that you can use. Because nowadays people have 1,000 different ways to get in contact with you. It's kind of hard to say, did you miss my call? Because I text you, I emailed you, I damn poked you on Facebook, I liked your Instagram, I DM'd you. It's just 1,000 different ways to talk to somebody. Conference software. So this has seen an explosion. Zoom, stock price and everything else went up a lot because everybody is using Zoom. Another one could be Skype or Google Hangouts. Stuff like that, but right now Zoom is the most popular. Okay, let's do a Zoom call. Pretty much everybody knows what that means. It's just you can see me on the camera just like this, and I will see you on the camera, and we will say whatever we need to say. Like I said, a lot of kids also are getting familiar with Zoom, even if they don't want to. Instant messaging, real simple. It's pretty much like a text message, but it's going to be on your PC, it's going to be on your laptop, it's going to be in a messaging app, and you can just shoot somebody a message and then it'll get directly to them. So instant messaging, right? So Facebook Messenger, Skype, and stuff like that. Document sharing. That's a really big collaboration tool. So you guys might have a project, but the project consists of one main idea or one main document, and you can have a team of you guys work through the document together. You can have version control, which means you'll see who did what, and we can save the previous version just in case if somebody hop in there and they sleepy or they didn't have enough coffee and they messed something up, we can go back to the version before that actually worked. All right, so collaboration stuff, that's email. Email ain't working, let's hop on a Zoom call. Your Zoom dropped, so I shoot you a Facebook message, and then we all collab on a document. I see that Sarah was the last one to make some adjustments or make some corrections, so I see the stuff that she did, and then I'll just hop on after whatever she did. Make sense? Hey gang, in the last episode we talked a little bit about web browsers, so let's talk about what web browsers can actually do and a few of the extra settings and things that come with web browser that we can actually kind of use to make the web browsers our own, make them a little bit more secure, make them a little bit more compatible, so on and so forth. Let's go ahead and get straight into it. All right, so web browsers. A lot of web browsers have a cache, right? Have a cache or use cookies, and pretty much what that is that information is saved on your hard drive. That information is saved so when you revisit that web page, it'll load a little bit faster. So I have to load the banner, the video, the everything, little nibbits and little kernels of the actual website will get saved. So when you bring the website up again, it'll load a little bit faster. Cookies also are used to kind of look to see what your habits are, to see what you're doing, to see what you like, what you don't like, to kind of make your browsing experience a little bit better. That's what they say. So just to make it a little bit better. Okay. Now, if you're using Chrome and other things, you can actually add more functionality to your browser. So you can add an extension. So if you're using Chrome, you can use an extension to where if you go on a website, it'll automatically apply coupons to your basket. Or you can add an extension that'll tell you what the weather is in 5 different countries. Or you can do an extension that can automatically block certain advertisements. Or you can do an extension, literally there is an extension for any and everything that you can think of, right? So they have extensions for VPNs. We'll talk about what a VPN is, a virtual private network. They have different extensions for anything you can think of, right? Now, private browsing. So whenever you're browsing, believe it or not, there's always somebody watching you. Always somebody watching you, whether it's to get your browsing habits, whether it's to see how you're actually interacting with a website or what you're doing, but somebody's always watching. A lot of advertisers are watching, a lot of marketers are watching it. If you own some weird ass websites, the FBI is probably watching. But with private browsing, it's not supposed to save any of your browsing information. No history, no cookies, no nothing. So it says it leaves no trace after you end the session. Technically doesn't leave a trace, doesn't leave anything behind. So if somebody, comes and opens up the web browser after you, whatever you were doing shouldn't pop up. Now, if you're doing some weird stuff, some crazy stuff, there is ways to still recover your browsing history, and some websites, it may not work on their website as far as their private browsing. Now, private browsing is better than nothing, so you can use it, but just know that if you're doing something crazy, if you're searching some weird stuff, if you trying to figure out how the hell to build a rocket launcher, no matter what the hell you're doing, you're going to end up on somebody's list, all right, end up on somebody's list. But anyway, we'll talk about that when we get more into security. But private browsing technically lets you browse in private without nobody seeing anything, okay? All right, so talking about private browsing, right? There's something called a proxy server. And if you use a proxy server, that can be even more in depth than a private browsing, way more in depth. So with private browsing, it's like, okay, I don't want people to know what I'm doing. I don't want people to see what I'm doing, so on and so forth. With a proxy server, you can actually ask the proxy server to go to websites instead of you. Make sense? If not, don't worry about it. I'm going to clear it up. So I want to go to weirdasswebsite.com, right? So instead of me going to the website myself, I actually connect to the proxy server. Then the proxy server connects to weirdasswebsite.com, and then it sends the information back to me. Okay? One more time. So I connect to the proxy server connects to whatever website I'm trying to connect to, and then via the proxy server, I get connected to that website. But to that website, it looks like the proxy server is the originator of the request. It looks like the proxy server is connected to the website and not me. Makes sense? All right. So instead, so let's say that I'm on a diet, right? Not really, no, just playing. Let's say that I'm on a diet, and I got a personal trainer. He like, hey man, you cannot eat any damn pizza. Do not eat any pizza. I'm like, okay man, I'm not going to eat pizza, just Brussels sprouts. And then I end up sending somebody to the store, right? Says somebody, hey man, I need a slice of pizza, man. I'm doing pretty bad. So the personal trainer is doing push-ups in the parking lot of the Pizza Hut or pizza store. Just so I won't come up there. So I'll send one of my neighbors, say, hey man, just go give me a slice of pizza, please. So he goes and gives me a slice of pizza. The personal trainer doesn't know it's me asking for the slice of pizza. The guy comes back and gives me the slice of pizza. So the next door neighbor that got me a slice of pizza would be the proxy server. Makes sense? They connected to it instead of me. We already know what pop-up blockers are. Pop-up blockers, block pop-ups, block pop-ups, right? So pop-ups are, hey, come try this diet pill. Hey, come do your taxes. Hey, come fix your credit. Hey, whatever, a pop-up advertisement that you don't want to see. So pop-up blocker does that. Now, with some websites, you actually have to turn on or turn off the pop-up blocker for it to work correctly. And a lot of times websites now tell you like, hey, you have to turn off the pop-up blocker. And some other websites, if you have like an ad blocker extension or something like that, it's going to actually block ads or actually tell you, hey man, this is how we make money. You got to turn that ad blocker off. All right. So whether it's an ad blocker or a pop-up blocker, it's going to block stuff that you don't want to see. All right, gang, so in our next episode of this video course and lecture, we're going to go through a really quick lecture. Okay, let's get straight into it. So we've been talking about software. We've been talking about different operating systems. We've been talking about a lot of things. So with applications or software in general, there's two different types. So with some applications and software, it can be open source. With other things, it can be proprietary. So if an operating system or a application is open source, you can actually modify it without worrying about any kind of ramifications, without anybody coming after you to sue you. You can literally make it your own. You can change the code. The source code, we talked about coding already, is available to you. So you can manipulate it any kind of way you want to without any legal ramifications or legal, that's not a word, legal repercussions, right? Now, proprietary means that the end user, you don't have access to the source code. You can't manipulate it. You can't do different things to it without getting in trouble. So, for example, Apple is proprietary. So if you change anything to the operating system, if you do anything weird, for one, it's going to void the warranty. And two, if you create something on a mass scale and make a lot of money, they're going to sue you because it says right there you cannot do anything to their source code. You cannot change anything. The way it is the way it is. So with cell phones, there's something called jailbreaking. You can jailbreak an iPhone or an Apple device. And what that means is that you break into the source code and you change it to whatever you want to change it to. And the things that I just mentioned, it's going to void the warranty. And if you do something super duper and make a lot of money, they're going to sue you, right? So proprietary, Apple, proprietary, Windows, proprietary. Now Linux is open source. Linux is open source. You can do what you want to. You can rock out. You can do whatever and nobody really cares and nobody's going to say anything. Open source, you can do whatever you want to willy-nilly. Proprietary, can't do anything at all. Okay? So when you're installing applications or any kind of software or operating system, just use common sense, right? First thing, I know you're cool, I know you're super smart, but read the damn instructions, right? Sometimes it's just next, or yes, but sometimes you may have to actually set up stuff and configure stuff, and a lot of times, believe it or not, those instructions are in the instructions. Another thing is make sure that you're reading the agreements, right? Because sometimes, especially with a lot of applications, a lot of apps, cell phone apps, you may be agreeing to something that isn't agreeable, right? It may the app may have access to things that it shouldn't have access to, or you don't feel it should have access to. So just make sure that, I know it's long, but at least do your due diligence, especially for mobile applications. Because just because it's in the Play Store or the Apple Store or the Microsoft Store does not mean that it's completely secure. So you have to do your due diligence and read what the hell does this thing have access to and what can and can it not do. Can it delete my numbers? Can it delete my contacts? Can it copy my contacts? Can it call people? Can it save stuff? Can it download? You know what I'm saying? So just make sure that you're aware of that stuff. And last but not least, See what's best. Is the default configuration best, the basic configuration, or do you want to have some advanced settings in there? Do you want a specific thing to happen at a specific time, so on and so forth? And if you change from the default settings or the basic configuration, how can that actually affect your experience, and can you go back if you mess up the settings? Make sense? The fourth domain is really going to piggyback on the last domain. In this domain, we're going to talk more about how to create or develop software, when the last domain kind of focused more on how to use different software, how to interact with different applications. This one is going to actually talk about more of the creation side of applications and software. You ready? Let's get into it. The next topic in our video series and course is going to be software development. Let's get straight into it. Okay, so software development. If you're using YouTube, if you're looking at this video right now, if you're looking at Netflix, you're going to be looking at code. All right, so the underlying part of that application is going to be written in code. So the coding language that it's written in is what the computer uses, is what we use to build software and applications. So it's kind of like the roadmap. If I click this, it's going to do this. If I close this, it's going to do that. So video games are written in code, applications are written in code, software is written in code. This website that you're on right now is written in code, okay? So there's a couple different language categories. So some popular languages are Python or Java or JavaScript or C++. And each one of these different languages have different uses, different strengths, different weaknesses, and different applicability depending on what you're trying to do. So language categories, we have interpreted. So interpreted languages execute instructions directly and freely, without previously compiling programs into instructions. So just like we talked about YouTube before, Python is the coding language that YouTube is built on. Facebook is also built on Python. Compiled languages. So a compiled language is converted directly into machine code that the processor can execute. So something that the PC, something that the actual CPU can execute. So an example of that is C++, which is what Windows Media Player is run on. So C++ is used on a lot of other applications and things like that, but that's just one of the things I thought would, stand out that you would know. So Windows Media Player uses C++. Query. Computer languages used to make queries in databases and information systems. So example, SQL. So Facebook, right? So when you search for something, if you're trying to look for something, it's going to use SQL. So query is just like a question. Cat videos, you type that into the search box in the Facebook, and that's a query, that's a question. So it's going to use SQL, that language, to figure out what you're trying to ask it, right? So today we talked about coding languages, popular coding languages, Python, JavaScript, C++, Java, so on and so forth. Code, all this stuff is built on code. Website we're on right now, all the applications that you use. Code is just the instructions that when you're playing a video game, if I press X, the guy's going to jump up. Makes sense? If I am on YouTube, when I press play, it's going to play. When I press pause, it's going to pause. So all that stuff is built on code. So the fifth domain is going to be database fundamentals. So database fundamentals, whether you're using Excel or Salesforce or something else that's more complicated, a database can make your life 10 times easier. So this domain is going to cover the fundamentals of database creation and how to maintain a database. We ready? Let's go ahead and get into it. All right, gang, in our next video in our video series and course, we're going to be going over database fundamentals. Let's get straight into it. So a database is just a collection of data. So you can quickly retrieve information, you can quickly search for information inside this database. So different types of databases for different types of applications. So you might have a point of sale, which is pretty much just a database with inventory, whether it's a grocery list, whether it's different shoe sizes, but it's just a database with different types of items in it. Or you can have a booking system to where it'll be able to look up different dates, different times, different locations, and different prices. So quick class, database uses. So in a database, you can create a database, you can import or input data, you can create a query. Like I said in the last episode, a query is just a question. Hey man, what is this? Hey man, what is that? Or you can create a report. Okay, on June 1st, all these things happen. On June 2nd, all these things happen. So database is just a clear and concise place where we can search for different data, different information, put different inputs, create queries, and even create reports. So there's a couple of different databases, right? We got flat file database or relational database. So in a flat file database, none of the stuff is related to anything else. All the files are their own individual standalones. So they're not related to the other files in the database. So these types of databases are standalone, meaning none of the data has any relation or linkage to any other files. So what do we think relational database is? So a relational database, all of the information inside of the database is related to one another. So it's a lot more robust, it's a lot more dynamic. So this type of database uses a collection of tables that are linked to a common thread of data. A relational database is much more robust than a flat file. So advantages, you can scale it. It's a lot more scalability, so meaning you can make it bigger, and it's going to be easier to scale it because everything is related. So once you put in a new file, it's going to relate and link that data to the other data that it would be linked to or related to, similar files, so on and so forth. Speed, it's a lot quicker than a flat file, because in a flat file you got to actually look into this folder and that folder. But with a relational database, if you search for something, the query is going to bring up all the stuff that's related to that search. And another thing, a variety of data. So you can have a variety of data, and it's going to be linked to similar data that's inside that relational database. So flat file is just pretty much standalone files by themselves. Relational database is just a bunch of files that are related to one another. The last and final domain is a super important domain because security is important for you, me, and every organization. With cybercrime and identity theft on the rise, we want to make sure that we have a good foundation for security. So with this being our last domain, make sure that you pay attention. Hopefully you had a good time. Hopefully you learned a lot. Well, I know you learned a lot. But anyway, let's go ahead and get straight into it. Let's go. All right, in the next video in our series and course, we're going to talk about the CIA triad or the CIA pyramid. Something super important when it comes to security. Let's dive straight into it. So when we talk about information security, there's three things that we always want to ensure: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. All right, so confidentiality just means that secret stuff stays secret, or the only people that should know about this stuff are the only people that know about this stuff. So confidentiality ensures data, info, services, and all the above remain hidden from unauthorized users. Confidentiality, it's a secret. Don't tell anybody else. If you have an email, the only person that should see that email is the person that you sent it to, right? Integrity. Integrity just means that the data, the services, the communication should remain the same. It shouldn't get altered. It shouldn't change at all. If you type an email, if you type something, once you send it to that person, it shouldn't have anything extra. It shouldn't have anything deleted. The integrity of information. Last but not least, availability. Things should be available to you when you want them to be available to you. If you want to go on itmastery.com, it should be available. You shouldn't be denied that service. You shouldn't be denied data. If you want an email from somebody, you should receive that email. So when it comes to information security, three things we want to really focus on: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Now there's a couple of concerns with each one of those. So with confidentiality, you have to worry about snooping. So snooping is pretty much being nosy, snooping around, looking around, trying to figure out people's personal information, right? Literally snooping, whether it's looking over somebody's shoulder, whether if it's going through physical paperwork, if it's trying to hack into somebody's stuff, that is snooping, right? So social engineering is taking that being nosy to a way more malicious wave, pretty much. So social engineering is literally asking prying questions to unsuspecting victims, pretty much, seeming like you're just making conversation, but you're trying to get as much information as possible. Hey, how you doing? Where you work at? Oh, how long you been working there? What's your hours? Who's your boss? Oh, how is he? What about security? Is there a security guard there at night? Oh, okay. Do y'all need passwords? Do y'all need pins? Do you need it? Just pretty much asking prying information where, and some people who aren't trained or, maybe they tired that day, they may actually give up a lot of security information without even knowing. Okay. Last but not least, dumpster diving, right? So that's why it's always a good idea to shred information, to shred your mail, to shred anything that may be personal to you, because that's still a thing. People will still go through the dumpster to see if they can find any information, especially around businesses and stuff like that, because maybe the secretary or whoever is the person that's in charge of doing it may not have shredded the information. They may throw 1,000 pages of personal information, people's social security number, people's addresses, and a dumpster, thinking, oh, ain't nobody gonna get in the dumpster. But depending on what the payout may be or what the result may be from somebody stealing that, they may be extremely motivated to dive in the damn dumpster. Okay. Next up is integrity. We said integrity is we want to make sure that the stuff is the way it is or supposed to be when it gets to the receiver. So I sent it, and I want to make sure it looks exactly the same way when it gets to you. So one of the attacks, or one of the ways that people can actually manipulate information or data, is with a man-in-the-middle attack. So literally, a man-in-the-middle attack is a software or device or even an actual person that is in between two different points. So I want to send something to you, but there's literally a man in the middle. So I send you an email, right? And it gets intercepted by the man in the middle. The email, when I sent it, said good morning, but he intercepts it. He changes the integrity of it. He changes it. And when it gets to you, it says good morning, go to hell, right? I didn't write that, but that's what it's going to say when it gets to you, because he changed the integrity. Makes sense? Another attack is a replay attack. So just like a man in the middle attack, you intercept the traffic, you change it around, and then you shoot it to whoever the recipient is. With a replay attack, they usually are in the middle, but they're capturing passwords, or they're capturing pins, or they're capturing sensitive information, and then they'll replay that information later on. So they figure out what your password and pin is, and then later on they'll use that information to log into your accounts. Make sense? Last but not least, impersonation. So that's when somebody impersonates that there's somebody else. This can be in physical form, this can be through email, this can be over the phone. So right now, there's a lot going on. So, somebody may impersonate, hey, I'm the CEO of Walmart. I just wanted to see if you need anything. I know that you frequent Walmart a lot. We're actually giving out this $500 gift card. If you would just, fill out this quick survey, it's not asking too much. And then when you actually get through the survey, they got your social security number, where you live, your credit card number. We won't charge your credit card numbers for a free trial, blah, 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 so on and so forth, okay? So we went over confidentiality, we went over integrity, and last but not least, availability. So the expectation is that when you click on something, you expect for it to work. You expect for you to be able to go on certain websites, so on and so forth. So one attack or one concern is denial of service. Sometimes this is malicious, sometimes it's not. When it's not malicious, let's say that we try to buy the latest and greatest t-shirt, right? Everybody in our city wants this t-shirt. So the server, the web server that runs the website that this t-shirt is on, can only handle 1,000 requests per minute, but it's getting 10,000 requests per minute. So the server and the website crashes, thus denial of service, right? But at the same time, it can actually be an attack to where there's actually a bunch of people trying to get on the website intentionally to crash it. So when people that actually want to get on a website can't get on the website. Makes sense? So denial of service, it can be malicious where people are actively trying to break the website, or it can be non-malicious to where it's just overloaded. Either way, the availability is gone and you'll have a denial of service. Another thing is power outages, right? So if it's a power outage, the power is out. You know, the web server isn't up, or the file server isn't up, or the PC that you're trying to get on isn't up. And one thing that we're going to talk about a little bit later is an UPS. And that's what's one thing that can actually help you with availability. So an UPS or a UPS is an uninterruptible power server or system. So what happens with an UPS is that when you have a power outage, when you have a blackout, when you have an electrical surge, something that happens that knocks out the power, the UPS is pretty much like backup power. So you'll have your servers connected to that, or you'll have other really important devices connected to an UPS. So when the power goes down, those devices will still work. So you can save stuff, shut down, so you won't have complete losses or corrupted data. Okay. Last but not least, hardware failure. So things break, you know, they may be past their lifetime. It may be time to life cycle those things and get rid of those things and get some new stuff in there. So with availability, service can be denied. You might have a power outage, or stuff just might break from time to time. Okay. All right, gang. So in the next video in our series and course, we're going to talk about the AAA model. We're going to talk about authentication, authorization, and accounting, and the differences between those three. Let's get straight into it. So authentication. Authentication is just ensuring that you are who you say you are. And there's a couple different factors, a couple different ways that we can figure that stuff out. All right, so we can authenticate you through one factor or multiple factors. So example of factors can be passwords, pins, biometrics, and biometrics would just be something that you are, right? So that could be an iris scan, that can be a fingerprint scan, so on and so forth. Or it can even be a hardware token. So a hardware token can be a ID badge, an access badge, stuff like that, right? So just understand that when we're talking about authentication, it's a couple different things. Multi-factor, meaning it's going to use multiple factors from that list. It's going to be something the user is, something the user has, or something the user knows. Password, something that you know. Your fingerprint, something that you, not say that you is, something that you are, something that you is, or something that you are. Or something the user has would be an ID badge or an access badge. Makes sense? So multi-factor is going to use two or more of those standards or those protocols. So multi-factor would be something that you know and something that you have. So you would use your password and you would use a badge, or it would be something that you are and something that you have. So you use a fingerprint and you would use your badge, or you would use so on and so forth. Makes sense? So understand that a password and a PIN would not be multi-factor. A password and a PIN would not be multi-factor, because a password and a PIN is something that you know. So that's only one factor. Make sense? All right, so is, has, knows. Something that you know, something that you are, or something that you have. Make sense? So we went through all authentication, proving that you are who you say you are. Then authorization is once you actually gain access, after we actually identify and make sure that you are who you say you are. So authorization is gaining access to a system, device, service, or data once authenticated. So when you talk about permissions, right? When you talk about permissions, you always want to use the model of least privilege. So there's a couple different models. Role-based access, meaning on what your role is, depends on how much permission you have. Mandatory access control, discretionary access control. What I want you to get out of this slide, though, is that no matter what you have going on, the pinpoint, the thing that you need to remember is once you become a system administrator, once you become the boss of all bosses, you need to always give people the least privilege. All right, so that may not make sense right now, but let's clear it up. So you give people the least amount of privilege to do their job, right? So if they just need read access, just give them read access. If they need complete ownership, then you just got to give them complete ownership. But don't go the lazy route and give people full ownership or full control when they don't need full control. Why is that? Why do you want to give people the least privilege? I don't think that the janitor should have the same permissions as the head IT tech. Makes sense? Because different people have different responsibilities. So if you give too many permissions to the wrong person, they may by accident delete the wrong thing, or on purpose delete the wrong thing, or move the wrong thing, or move things. So you want to always apply the principle of least privilege to minimize the surface area of attack. Meaning that, like I said, a lot of times users do things by mistake or by accident. Sometimes it's malicious. So just give people the amount of access that they need. So if they work in human resources, they probably only need access to the human resources files. If they work in finance, they probably need the access to just finance, right? Or if they need access to human resources, they probably need access to certain files in the human resource. So as a system administrator, you can create groups and then put people in groups, and everybody in that group would have the same permissions, just to kind of make things a little bit easier for you. But when it comes to permissions, don't be lazy, but always use the principle of least privilege, because it's better to give people not enough privileges and then find out, okay, maybe I need to give them a little bit more, maybe I need to tweak this, maybe I need to tweak that, than to give them way too many and they done deleted something or installed something or just did something crazy that you kind of can't come back from. Make sense? Okay. So we went through authentication, which is approving who you are, authorization, actually giving you access after we prove who you are, then accounting. So this is actually once you actually are authorized and you own access, got access, and you own the server, or you in the server room, or you own the website, or you doing whatever you're gonna do. This is actually pretty much tracking you and accounting to make sure what you're doing, when you did it. So if there's any changes, we can figure out, was it you, was it somebody else, was it a system, what's going on. All right, so accounting, like I said, monitors and tracks what you do after you've been authorized access. So with this, as far as troubleshooting goes, you can go through logs and see, okay, at 8:59 you logged on, and then at 9:15 everything blew the hell up. Let's see if it was something that you did, or if it was just something else. Then, like I said, you can actually track people too. Like I said, that's another thing. Let's say that you did give too many permissions to somebody, and they log in at 9 o'clock. At 9:05, this file disappeared. They was the only one that was logged on, so it had to be them. All right, it's pretty much deducing that, okay, it had to be you because you was the only person that was on the network at that time. Make sense? So we just went over AAA, which is authentication, authorization, and accounting. I almost forgot my damn self. No, I didn't. But this is really simple. May have seemed like it was a little complex before, but authorization, authentication, accounting. Well, actually in a reverse. Authentication, authorization, and accounting. Authentication, you are who you say you are. Authorization, let's give them access to what he supposed to have access to. Accounting, let's look at what the hell you're doing after we actually gave you access. Hey gang, so in today's video we're going to go over encryption. Let's get straight into it. So there's data in transit and data at rest. Data in transit would be emails, right? And data at rest would be something like your hard drive. So data in transit, stuff that's moving across the network, stuff that's actually moving, stuff that's actually in motion, stuff that's getting uploaded, stuff that's getting downloaded. At rest is just the things that are on your actual hard drive, stuff that's not moving right now as we speak. So if it's data in transit, we can actually encapsulate and encrypt that information, meaning that it shouldn't be able to be read by anybody other than the recipient. Nobody should be able to peek in and see what we're doing. We can also encrypt the data that's at rest. We can encrypt the entire hard drive, or we can actually encrypt certain files and folders on that hard drive. And just so we understand, encryption just means that you make the information make the data unreadable to people that shouldn't be able to read it. The people that you don't want it to see, which is probably everybody other than the person you're sending it to, shouldn't be able to read it. Okay? So encryption is the conversion of something such as data into code or cipher. By encrypting data, you make it unreadable to individuals that shouldn't be able to read it. So if something isn't encrypted, it's referred to as plain text, meaning that if somebody look at it, if somebody get it, they can read it. If something is encrypted, it's called ciphertext, meaning that even if somebody captures it, even if somebody sees it, they shouldn't be able to read it. So we got plain text and ciphertext. Hey gang, in the next video in our series and course, we're going through some best practices you and I need to be doing when it comes to our devices. So, of course, you know, when you have any device, whether it's a tablet, whether it's a cell phone, a laptop, a PC, you need to have some form of antivirus or anti-malware. If it connects to the internet, it's susceptible to a lot of viruses. Even if it doesn't connect to the internet, it's susceptible to viruses, but if it connects to the internet, the chance of you getting a virus, you know, is exponentially greater than if it doesn't connect to the internet. So antivirus, not only make sure that you have antivirus, but make sure that the antivirus is up to date. If it's not up to date, if you don't update it regularly, then it's only going to be up to date for the viruses that it knows about. But if you updated it a month ago and 3 weeks ago, a new virus came out, it's going to scan for everything except that virus. Makes sense? Next up, a firewall. We talked about this before. Make sure that you keep the firewall on at all times. So, quick class, we already know that a firewall keeps out the stuff that we don't want, right? So by default, it's going to stop certain things that look suspicious, and then we can actually go in there and configure it to stop things that we know are suspicious. But by default, it's set up pretty good to let through the things that we need and stop the things that we don't need and the things that may be harmful to our device. So passwords, we already know this because you guys are super smart. Make sure that you never keep the default passwords. Always change your passwords. After this, we're actually going to get inside of password best practices, things that we need to do. That's going to be a couple lectures from now. But passwords, make sure that you have a strong password and that you change whatever the hell the default password is. So updates. Make sure that your software is as up to date as possible. When new updates come up, make sure that you update your software. Now, if it's on a personal device, you can probably go and update. But if you're in a production environment, or if you're a system administrator, or if you have a bunch of computers that you need to update, it would behoove you, it would be a good idea for you to run that update in a virtual machine or run that update on a test computer just to see how that update is going to react. Because sometimes updates may not be compatible with your devices, may not be suitable for your devices, and it may actually stop your devices from working. So like I said, most times if it's a personal use thing, it's probably okay just to go ahead and update. But if you're in a larger environment, you want to make sure that you pay attention to that stuff. Okay? All right, so software, whether it's applications, whether it's for PCs, laptops, make sure that when you're using software that it's legitimate, right? So make sure that you're not just picking up CDs or USBs off of the ground and downloading stuff onto your devices, because even if it looks legitimate, right, it may not be legitimate. It may have a back door, it may have a virus embedded into it, it may have a key logger, which is something that's going to actually log your keys. It may have spyware on it, which is something that's going to spy on you and see what you're doing. Just make sure that you get it from a legitimate software or a legitimate source, and just make sure that it's up to snuff, because if not, you may be putting yourself at risk for viruses, identity theft, and a bunch of other stuff you don't really want. Another thing, make sure that you remove anything that you don't want, and remove unnecessary stuff too, because sometimes software and applications may be running in the background. It may be taxing on your CPU, it may be taxing on your RAM, it may be taking up space, and it's something that you don't even need. So a lot of times it's good to do an audit. What applications are running, what applications I need, and if it's stuff that you don't really need, get it out of there. Another thing, if you know you got a virus, pretty much disconnect from your network, right? So you don't propagate that virus, or so it can't replicate, or so it can't get to other devices, and then try to remove that virus as quickly as possible. And then after you do that, come up with some kind of prevention, like, okay, let me make sure that I don't go to that website, or let me make sure that I'm running scans more often, or let me make sure that, you know, this virus isn't embedded anywhere else. But whenever you get a virus, the good thing is, or a good footnote or best practice, is to always get it out of there, get it resolved as soon as possible. Hey gang, in today's video series and course, we're going to actually talk about password best practices. There's some of the things that you need to be doing on any website that you're on. If it has a password, these are the things that you need to ensure that your password has. Ready? Let's get straight into it. So, real simple. If you follow this stuff, you should be okay. Now, main thing, as we go through these passwords and all this best practices, at the bottom is one super duper bit of advice. If you have a super strong password, but you're using it on 50 different sites, it doesn't really matter because once somebody cracks that password, they're going to have access to your email, your bank account, your Facebook, your Instagram. So just make sure that you use different passwords on different sites. And if you just can't remember, because I know every damn thing need a password out, if you just can't remember your passwords, you can actually use a password manager. Pretty much there's a bunch of different applications, there's a bunch of different services that you pretty much say, hey, this is all the stuff that I use, this is all my accounts, and they'll give you one password. So you only got to remember one password, and they'll generate a random password every time you log into those applications. Only downside to that is that if that password manager gets cracked, they got all your stuff. But anyway, there's neither here nor there. Best practices. If you got a password, it needs to be 8 to 12 characters, right? 8 to 12 characters. Anything lower than that, you're kind of asking for trouble. So 8 to 12 characters. If you want it to be more than 12 characters, that's cool, but that's just more shit you got to remember, right? So 8 to 12 characters. Number 2, you should have everything in your password: uppercase, lowercase, numbers, and special characters. And try to avoid things that are in a dictionary. So don't put Nike 1 2 3. Is Nike in a damn dictionary? Hold on, that might have been a bad example. Don't put dog 1 2 3 exclamation point, because that's going to make your password a little bit more susceptible to being cracked. Another thing, try to not have anything that pertains to you, even in your username, or in your password, because a lot of people like to put their last name and then, you know, it'd be Rob85 or Jenkins 72 or whatever, right? So just try to make sure that you don't have anything that pertains to you inside your password or your username, and just make sure that you use all that stuff: uppercase, lowercase, special characters, and numbers, and try to avoid anything that's in the dictionary, any words that's in the dictionary. Another thing, like I said before, passwords shouldn't be repeated. Most systems now won't allow you to reuse the same password, because a lot of times passwords have expiration dates, whether you got to change it every 60 days, every 90 days, every 180 days, whatever it is. Most places have an expiration date on your password. So make sure that if it is a system that you can reuse your password, that you don't reuse the same password, because that's going to make you more susceptible to get your password cracked, because that password, you probably written that password down somewhere, probably got it saved in your phone. So just make sure that you don't reuse passwords. And then, like I was saying at the beginning, make sure that you don't use the same password across several platforms, because like I said, when somebody cracks your password, they're going to try to use that password across multiple platforms. Make sense? All right, guys, so this is the last video in our series and course, and we're going to talk about continuity concepts. Continuity just means that the continuation, right? The continuation, if something happens, how we can continue on, how we can keep on serving users, how we can continue to keep on doing what we need to do. Continuity concepts, this is really important for businesses, whether it's Master IT, whether it's Google, whether it's YouTube, continuity. If something goes wrong, if something doesn't work the way we want it to, how do we recover from those things? Okay. So fault tolerance. Every business, everybody wants to have fault tolerance, meaning that how tolerant are we when something breaks? How quickly can we bounce back when something breaks? How quickly can we fix errors? All right. So the more fault tolerant that you are, the better that you'll be. So how to strengthen your fault tolerance? You can do that through redundancy and backups. Redundancy just means the same thing over and over and over and over again. The reason that you can actually increase your fault tolerance through backups is that if you have a fault, a terrible fault that erases everything, that corrupts everything, you have backups. So it's not going to take you that long to come back online. Instead of having to rewrite everything, having to rebuild everything, you have backups of the things that you need. Okay? So there's a couple different types of backups. A full backup is a whole shebang bang. That is everything, right? That may be a terabyte, that may be a zettabyte, that may be just a ridiculous amount of information. So most times if you need to do a full backup, if you're in a production environment or if you're even doing your personal backup, you need to do that at a time that you're not really going to be on the computer. So pretty much you let it back up overnight, or you let it back up for a couple nights, or you just pretty much tell everybody, hey, it's going to be a network outage, or this isn't going to work, so on and so forth. So you just have a designated block of time to where you can back up your stuff, because you don't want to be moving stuff around and certain stuff doesn't get backed up, or it stops the backup at all because it couldn't access certain things. Okay. Now you have a differential backup. So a differential backup is a type of backup that copies all the data that has changed since the last full backup. Okay. So only thing it's going to save, instead of doing a whole shebang bang, if you had a gigabyte worth of information and you added 2 files, with a differential backup, it's not going to back up the whole 1 gigabyte. It's only going to save those 2 files and add those to the original 1 gigabyte backup. Okay. So differential, then you have incremental. Incremental captures only the changes made since the last incremental backup. Okay. So full backup, whole shebang bang. Differential only saves the stuff since the last full backup. Then the incremental only saves the stuff from the last incremental backup. All right. And all of this stuff, like I said, improves fault tolerance and creates redundancy. So you have the same file saved over and over again. So if you lose it, you always have those backups. Now, another thing that's going to help with fault tolerance is disaster recovery, whether it be man-made, whether it be malicious attack, but just when things happen, how fast can we recover, right? So there's a couple different sites that we can have, whether it be cloud-based or whether it be a physical location. But these are the different sites that most businesses would set up, and it depends on their size, their budget and stuff like that, what type of recovery site they'll have. So a cold site is usually just another building. Meaning that if this damn building set on fire, at least we'll have another building. It may not have no equipment, it may not have nothing in there, but usually the electricity is on, water is running, stuff like that. But it's just another building that, we can start from scratch and go over there. Now, a warm site has some of the same capabilities as the main site that was destroyed, but it doesn't have everything, right? It may have a couple servers, but at our main site we have 30 servers. It may have 20 PCs, well, we got 100 employees. So it's just got some of the stuff, right? Nah, a hot site means that it's an exact replica. Whatever the hell was at our main site, we can literally, if our main site is here, our hot site is here, we can go across the street and it's going to be a mirror image. Whatever we could do at our main site, we can do it at our hot site. Now, of course, the hot site is going to be the most time consuming and the most expensive, but it's going to be able to get you back on your feet as fast as possible. Now, each site and each business has a different order of restoration, right? And another thing, like we talked about a couple episodes before, is that with fault tolerance, with disaster recovery, power outages, that's one of the biggest things, right? to save the information that's on your servers, to save the information that's on your most important devices, you always want to have them connected to an UPS, or an uninterrupted power supply, right? So that UPS is used as a backup, somewhat of a backup generator, but just backup power just to those main devices. And the main thing is just to save everything, because some UPS may last 30 minutes, some may last 6 hours. But the main thing is just, okay, let me make sure that everything is saved, everything is backed up, and I can shut it down properly so nothing is corrupted, right? So for a site, it may be, okay, let me make sure the UPS is on, let me make sure the main power then turn back on, and then let me make sure that the servers is up, right? Or it may be, okay, the UPS is on, main power ain't working, let me save everything and shut down properly, right? So depending on your site and depending on your modus operandi, or what you actually do at your business, depends on what's going to be a priority as far as what should we restore first, what should we get back online first.
Hey gang, it's Rob from ITMastersKey.com, and my job is to help each and every one of you guys get a rewarding tech career. In this video, we're going to go over everything a beginner should know. So first thing I want to tell you is, for some reason, beginner is always translated to easy. Beginner is always correlated to, oh, this is going to be no big deal. Well, let me put something in perspective for you. How easy do you think beginner bull riding is? Not too easy, right? It's probably very, very, very difficult. So you just got to understand that we all have to begin at a certain point. I'll promise you, by the end of this video, you're going to learn something that you did not know. You're going to learn something that you need to know, no matter where you are in your journey. So, as you already know, I'm Rob, the founder of the Zero to IT Hero program, a program that's helping people just like you transition into tech. So one of the best ways to know if tech is for you, one of the best ways to see if you really understand what's going on, or the things that you need to understand that are going on, is a certification called the ITF Plus, right? So that stands for IT Fundamentals. So the ITF Plus is under a vendor called CompTIA. CompTIA, as of today, is the most popular IT certification organization and is recognized around the globe, right? Now, unlike a lot of degrees, unlike a lot of these weird colleges, this is actually recognized. People know what this is. People in the industry respect the CompTIA brand, right? Now, this is for beginners. This is foundational, right? These skills are the things that you need to know. These skills are the things that you should know, all right, to kind of put it in better emphasis. So the ITF Plus is a baseline certification. It is a beginner certification. It is a foundational certification. So who is it for? It's for everybody. It is for anybody. It is for anybody that is interested in IT. Now, caveat, just so you know, this is not a employment ready certification. We'll talk about employment ready certifications further down the road, right? But this one right here is not an employment ready certification. This is the step before that. This is really no bigger investment required, not that much time required, but you'll learn a lot. And you'll actually be able to see, okay, this is the direction I want my tech career to go in, or you'll be able to see, I don't think this is for me. Either way, you're going to learn. So the ITF Plus is a certification exam that's going to be 60 minutes long, and you'll get a maximum of 75 questions. So since it's a beginner exam, you probably think it's going to be stuff on there like, what is a computer? What's a printer? How do I turn my computer on? You couldn't be more wrong. Like, you're wrong as hell. Matter of fact, let me show you just all the stuff that's going to be in an exam. Let's hop over here. All right, gang. So I want to literally show you everything that's on this crazy exam. I want to show you everything that is on this ITF Plus, right? So like I told you before, It's 75 questions, and you got 60 minutes to knock that stuff out. Now, according to this, you don't need any prior experience. But what I will say is when we get into the job ready certifications, this right here is a perfect precursor to that. And my students have found that once they go ahead and grab this, those job ready certifications are a lot easier. So the things that you're going to break down in the actual exam is going to be IT concepts and terminology, infrastructure, application and software development, database fundamentals, and security. So you're probably saying, okay, it's too easy. This is too easy, right? But it's not, because it's literally hundreds of subdomain subtopics in each one of these domains, okay? For example, in concepts and terminologies, you're going to go over binary, hexadecimal, decimal, and we're going to talk about different types of data types, whether it's integers, floats, Boolean. We're going to talk about inputs, outputs. Make sure that you understand the value of data, whether it's trademarks, copyrights, patents, digital products. We're also going to talk about common units of measure, all the way from a bit, all the way up to a petabyte. You probably don't know what a petabyte is. Go ahead and look it up. Processing speed, whether it's in megahertz, gigahertz. One of the big things is going to be the troubleshooting steps or methodology. So identifying a problem, establishing a theory of probable cause, test the theory, establish a plan of action, implement the solution, verify full system functionality, and last but not least, making sure that you document everything for the next person that's coming behind you, right? So no matter where you're at in your journey, if you're taking a CompTIA exam, that right there, those troubleshooting steps is pretty much the key to passing the exams. Next up is infrastructure. All the stuff I just said was in one domain. This is only the second domain, and it's 6 domains in here. So in the second domain, you're going to go over networking, peripheral devices, graphic devices, whether it's VGAs, HDMI. We'll talk about Bluetooth, talk about NFC, talk about RJ45s, a bunch of stuff. Also going to talk about different types of devices, how to install them, troubleshooting them. So printers, scanners, keyboards, cameras, speakers, plug and play stuff, IP-based peripherals, web-based configuration stuff. Also going to talk about the stuff that's inside your laptop and your PC. So RAM, motherboard, CPUs, difference between 32-bit stuff and 64-bit stuff, storage, cooling, network interface cards. Then we're going to dive into internet service types. So fiber optic, cable, DSL, satellite. What are the differences between all these things? Next up, we're going to talk about, or we're going to get into compare and contrast storage types. So volatile, non-volatile, flash drive, network area storage. Is your head spinning yet? So well, for everybody's easy, how easy does this shit sound to y'all? I don't know. It don't sound too easy to me, but you guys are geniuses, man. I just went to public school. All right, so compare and contrast common computing devices. Mobile devices, tablets, laptops, workstations, servers, Internet of Things. Next, we're going to talk about networking concepts, different types of protocols, whether it's HTTPS, POP3. Let's talk about network communications, DNS, different device addresses, whether it's IP address, MAC address. Next up, we're going to talk about wireless networks, right? So different types of protocols, changing your service set identifier, encrypted versus unencrypted, different types of encryption, whether it's WEP, whether it's WPA2. That's just 2 domains so far. And I'm kind of summarizing this stuff. It's way more than this, actually. Application and software is the 3rd domain that you're going to be talking about. So that's going to be talking about disk management, interface between applications, memory management, device management, the difference between a mobile OS and a workstation OS. We also got to make sure that we know about operating systems, different file systems inside the operating systems, difference between Linux and Microsoft, difference between utilities, processors, that type of stuff. Also, you want to talk about the proper use and the uses for different types of software. So you got productivity software, you got collaboration software, you got business software, and all these do different things and serve different purposes. Also, application architecture is going to be in there and different types of delivery models. So do you want to have a 1-tier, 3-tier, hybrid? Do you want to have it locally installed? Do you want to do it over a cloud? How do you want to host this different type of stuff? Also, we're going to talk about configuring different browsers, private browsers, proxy settings, script blockers, caching, browser add-ons, extensions, all that kind of stuff. Next, we're going to learn how to compare and contrast different types of applications and their uses. So we're going to talk about licensings. We're going to talk about the best way to install different types of software, single platform, cross-platform, all that kind of stuff. Next up is going to be software and development concepts, right? So different types of programming languages, right? If you guys want to know about code, that's in here too. And this is supposedly a beginner certification. This is supposedly a certification that you can just go take and pass. Let me see it. I want to see you do it without studying, please. Like I said, don't have anybody on the internet tell you that this stuff is easy. Don't have anybody on the internet tell you that this stuff is just, oh, you just go in there and take it. You don't need it. Okay. And just remember, this is the first certification that my students get. Is the first certification that I recommend, because once you get this foundational stuff, you should be able to go whatever direction you want. Also, we're going to talk about organizational techniques and interpret logic. So logic components, where there's branching and looping. Then you can talk about the actual purpose of different programming concepts, whether it's identifiers, containers, or objects. Next up is going to be database fundamentals. You know, what is a database? What's the purpose of a database? Different uses, flat file versus database, records, storage. And you're also going to compare and contrast various database structures. So structured versus semi-structured versus non-structured, relational databases. Then you're going to summarize the uses of the interfaces with the databases, right? So relational methods, database access methods, export, import, database dumps, backups, different types of things that you can do inside of your database. Last but not least, super important, this beginner cert also talks about security. Listen to all the stuff that we done talked about already. Then it dives into security too. Man, so summarize the CIA, which is confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Explain methods to secure devices and best practices. So securing mobile devices as well as physical devices that stay in one place, whether it's a PC, laptop, so on and so forth, and device best use practices to make sure that nobody does anything weird. Also, make sure that you know about behavioral security concepts. So how are people supposed to rock out on the internet? What's their expectations of privacy as opposed to on their home network or their work network? You want to make sure that people understand written policies and procedures, all that kind of stuff, and how to handle personal information. Next up, we want to talk about the AAA method and how to non-repudiate stuff. So we're going to talk about authentication, authorization, accounting, and the differences between those three things. Another thing that's great, that's awesome inside of this, is password best practices. How long should it be? How complex should it be? Can we use the same passwords? When do we have to reset them? So on and so forth. Another thing is encryption. Super important. What's the difference between ciphertext and plain text? Should we use a VPN or should we do something else? Should we do mobile applications or should we do, file level, disk level encryption, so on and so forth? Another super important thing is continuity, right? If something goes left, if something doesn't work right, how do we fix it? What's the proactive stuff that we can do? So we're going to talk about fault tolerance, replication, redundancy, critical data, how to back up stuff, having a contingency plan, and disaster recovery. So gang, look at all that stuff we just talked about. Let me hop back over here. So what's the verdict? We still think it's easy, or what are we thinking? Because I don't think it's easy at all, right? Now, good news is if you train, if you educate yourself, you keep on doing what you need to do, these things will become easy. But if you kind of start off the gate like, oh, this is easy, it's too easy for me, you're going to catch an L when you go take the exam, right? So I'm going to take this even a step further. So right now we're about to jump into a practice test, right? So we'll go through some questions, go through the answers. I'll fully explain why the answer is the answer. Then moving forward, you can decide if this is the exam for you. Now, if you are crazy, if you have blurred vision, if you are dehydrated, if you didn't eat breakfast this morning, no, these are not the damn questions that's going to be on the exam, right? That would be cheating, and we don't do that. Winners win. So let's go ahead and get into it. All right, gang, so for your viewing pleasure, I've created a practice test just for you guys. So if you see me looking off, it's because I am looking at the practice exam that I created, right? So the question pop up on the screen. I'll give you guys some time to actually think about it. Instead of multiple choice, I want you to dig deep down to see exactly what you know and how you would answer these questions on your own. We ready? Let's go ahead and get to it. You suspect that your computer has been affected with malware. Describe the steps you would take to identify and remove the malware. All right, gang, so we're back. So the first thing that you would do is to isolate, right? You want to isolate whatever device that is. You want to isolate wherever that is happening so it doesn't spread, right? You also want to make sure that you identify, right? You want to identify what is wrong. What's the virus? What is it? You can do that through an antivirus. You can do that through intrusion prevention systems. You can do that through a multitude of things, but you want to identify exactly what you're dealing with. Another thing is quarantine, right? So isolation and quarantine can be the same thing, right? Once you isolate, you want to make sure that you quarantine that device as well, right? Make sure that you quarantine that device, and then quarantine, if it's only a certain sector of the laptop or the phone or whatever, you want to make sure that you quarantine as much as possible. So quarantine the physical thing, and then try and quarantine it inside that software, try and quarantine it inside of whatever the actual problem is. If you kind of don't know what the malware is, I will make sure that our research is well, right? Make sure that our research is well to figure out what it is, what it usually does. Does it propagate? Does it try and take over admin permissions? What does this thing usually do, just to make sure that you're coming at it in the best way? Now, let's say that you run a system scan on the actual device. You run through the antivirus. For some reason, it's acting weird. For some reason, it's doing all types of crazy stuff. For some reason, you can't figure out if the device is okay now. You can't figure out if the virus is gone or not. Sometimes you got to do a full system restore, right? Maybe start from a different point before the virus was there, right? Sometimes that works, sometimes that doesn't work. So sometimes you even do the system restore and the virus is still there. But it's one of those things that you can do if it seems like the antivirus, the scans and stuff aren't picking up the virus or aren't fixing the actual issue. Another thing is, make sure that before this even happens, that all your antivirus is patched. Make sure that all the updates that you need to run on your systems and your software is up to date. Why? Because if it's not up to date, there may be new viruses which come out all the time that your antivirus doesn't even know to scan for. It doesn't even know that that even exists, right? Another thing would be, if you got an antivirus, if you got a virus, if you got some malware, you can't figure out exactly where it came from, I would strongly advise, if it's something personal, that you change your account passwords, whether that's email, social media, so on and so forth, if you can't quite figure out where you got it from. And even on the actual enterprise network, if you're working at jobs, so on and so forth, I would recommend changing those passwords too. And also tell the person, hey man, if you know exactly how it happened, if they was on some weird websites or if they were on any of that type of stuff, I would make sure that you inform the user, hey, make sure you do this, make sure you do that. And you go even deeper, because a lot of times there's paperwork that the person has to sign. There's different things that the person has to sign that they shouldn't be doing anything weird on the company time anyway. So if that's a thing, you can actually tell them that too. But the last thing I would say, even if they didn't do anything weird, it wasn't their job, it wasn't anything that they did, I would still educate the user. Just say, okay, next time this happens, or to prevent this happening, you can do X, Y, Z. Now, drop in the comments, let me know. This is the first question. Just say, number one question, let me know if that was your thought process. Let me know how you guys did. Let's get into the next one. So the last one was focused on security. This one I want to talk a little bit more about networking. So let's explain the purpose and benefits of subnetting a network. So the main purpose, the main advantage of subnetting is pretty much to divide up a large network into smaller networks that are a lot more manageable. So there's a couple different things that you can do, right? There's a couple different reasons why we want to do this, and I've written them down. So one of them is address management, right? So subnetting allows you to allocate the specific amount of IP addresses that you need for that network. So instead of just throwing a million IP addresses at a network that only needs 10, you make sure that you only allocate that many IP addresses, right? Also, you can improve security by subnetting, right? So you can actually figure out exactly, okay, there's some weird stuff going on this subnet, as opposed to, damn, the whole network is messed up. The whole network has malware. The whole network is weird, right? So, oh, I subnetted this network for the finance department. This is where it's happening at. Let me go over there and figure it out. Another thing is you can simplify traffic, whether it's routing, that type of stuff, and scalability as well. Scalability just means, you know, your ability to scale and to grow. And when you subnet, you can kind of tell exactly, okay, this is how many IP addresses I need. This is how many devices I can put on this network. Instead of looking at the big picture, it can make you be a lot more focused. Let's describe the concept of a firewall and how a firewall can contribute to network security. So long story short, a firewall is pretty much a device or software application that acts as a barrier in between something that's trusted and something that is not trusted, right? So it kind of uses a bunch of different things to make sure that something from the outside is safe to come inside, right? So a few different things that it does is it filters packets, right? So that's what I'm pretty much talking about. So packets come from all different types of places, and it wants to make sure that everything is cool. Just like all the Amazon packages that you get, all the different things that you get. If you had a firewall in front of your house, it would be a big strong dude in front of your house, and he would literally be ripping open packages to look and see what was in there. And if it was cool, he would give it to you. If it wasn't, he would throw it in the trash, right? The next thing is something called stateful inspection, right? Excuse me. Stateful inspection. I just thought about something. I'm sorry. Excuse me. Stateful inspection, right? So stateful inspection is something that's a lot more intelligent, right? So it pretty much inspects the packet live right there and makes a decision right there just to make sure that everything is cool, as opposed to using preset protocols, preset boundaries, so on and so forth. It just triple checks live right there to make sure that things are cool for that stuff to come inside your network. Another good thing about firewalls is access control. Basically giving people that are supposed to have access, they'll have access. The people that shouldn't have access will never have access. That could help with intrusion detection, intrusion prevention, DMZ implementation, and DMZ is just a demilitarized zone, which pretty much means that we have a safe space for untrusted or weird people that we think we have to do business with or we have to interact with. They can go in the DMZ and we can do business with them, as opposed to having to come on our actual network. Last but not least, you can do proxying, network address translation, application layer filtering. Long story short, it makes things that much more safer, and it allows you as a security manager, as help desk person, as a server administrator, as a network engineer, as fill in the blank, to make things a lot more safer for you and everybody else that's on the network. All right, gang, so just so you guys won't feel left out, let's go ahead and jump into some multiple choice stuff, right? So which infrastructure component is responsible for assigning IP addresses dynamically to devices on the network? Would it be routers? Would it be switches, DHCP server, or a firewall? So a DHCP server is responsible for assigning IP addresses, right? So dynamically just means that something happens automatically, right? So the dynamic host configuration protocol, DHCP server, automatically assigns IP addresses to whatever devices you want to get assigned to, right? Now, a router is a device, a switch is a device, and a firewall, we already broke that down, right? So it says which infrastructure component is responsible for assigning IP addresses dynamically. Always remember, dynamically is another word for automatically, and a DHCP server does that. All right, now let's hop back into the fill in the blank questions, because I think these are going to be most beneficial for you, right? Because it's like I tell my guys and my girls in the Zero to IT Hero program, you got to have critical and analytical thinking. You got to know how to think for yourself, right? So let's get back into those type of questions. Explain the concept of network segmentation in the context of IT infrastructure security. Why is it important, and what are the potential benefits? All right, gang, so like we talked about earlier, right? Network segmentation allows you to isolate things, right? And when it comes to security, if you isolate and segment the network, it doesn't allow an attacker, weirdos, people that don't want to see you do good, it doesn't allow them to move around the network as freely, and it also allows you to troubleshoot a lot easier to figure out, okay, where's this coming from? Where's the issue at? It's right here in this subnet, because I networked and network segmented this network right here. Is easier to troubleshoot, easier to figure out, and easier to secure. All right, so access control in general, right, is a way to control access. So discretionary access, or DAC, allows owners to control access to their resources, while mandatory access control is more like classification levels, right, and enforces security policies and procedures. So discretionary access would be a way to set individual user permissions, while mandatory access control would be more on a top secret level, right? So everybody that has top secret access can access this. Everybody that has classified can access this. Make sense? Now discuss the concept of BYOD. Explain the security challenges associated with BYOD and provide strategies for mitigating these challenges. Now, this question might be hard just because you don't know what BYOD stands for, right? So on any CompTIA exam, including this one, you have to be very, very well versed in acronyms. BYOD stands for bring your own device. Bring your own laptop, bring your own cell phone, bring your own printer, bring whatever the hell you want to bring, and bring it to our network, right? So that's what BYOD is. BYOD can save a company money on devices, but it can also cost a company in security, breaches, that type of stuff. Because believe it or not, people do all types of weird things on their personal computers, and all that weird stuff can be brought on your network and mess everything up. So a lot of times what happens is, if a company has BYOD, they have some type of sandbox feature. They have some type of sandbox software, which literally means that the company stuff runs in this sandbox. Whatever weird stuff, whatever other personal stuff you have on your laptop, it doesn't interfere with what's in this sandbox. It's pretty much walled off. It's a boundary, and only stuff that involves the company can be done inside of this sandbox. So gang, I would like to enjoy my Apple. So what is the price of admission for this wonderful training that I took time out of my day to give to you guys? Nothing much. Like this video, comment below on what type of training you will want me to do next. The students that are in the Zero to IT Hero program, make sure that right after this is going to be your practice final exam. Then right after that, go take the real thing and knock it out. If you like what I do, if you like what I presented, if you're looking to transition to IT, head over to itmasterkey.com and apply to the Zero to IT Hero program. You can do so by following what I just said, or there's a bunch of links down in the description. Also, I want you to make sure that you watch my last video, which is just as informative, just as helpful as this one. It should be popping up somewhere right now. So, according to old folklore, apple a day keeps the doctor away. I don't know if that's true. I just know that they're delicious. Other than that, I'll see you in class. Is an A+ still worth it in 2025 and 2026? If you don't have time to wait around, if you're too busy, if you got to get back to watching Netflix, the answer is yes. Now, if you got a little bit more time, I'll explain exactly why A+ could be your ticket, your gateway to get into tech. Let's get into it. People may say that the A+ is skippable, right? But if you skip this cert, you might be skipping your, entire tech career. So I'm about to break down, 5 things that most people don't know about the A+, the actual skills that you gain, and what job it actually unlocks. And there's a couple jobs actually. And, just how difficult the exam is, and just if it's for you, right? So like I said, I can't really tell you if it's for you or not, but by the end of this, you'll have a lot more information to kind of make an educated guess on if it's for you, right? So maybe 5 years ago, you could say, maybe it's too basic. Nobody hires for A+, and it's just for help desk or something like that, right? Truth is, every career has, a first step, a starting point. So if you want to build, a muscle, right? If you want to get in shape, you don't start by running a damn triathlon, right? If you want to get stronger, you don't put 315 on the bench and try and bench it unless you want to decapitate yourself, right? So A+ is that foundation, right? A+ is that first step for, your IT career and just trying to learn, right? So it's a couple different things, right? A couple different myths or a couple different sayings or whatever you want to say about A+, right? One of them is that A+ is just for help desk. Now, can A+ help you get a help desk job? For sure. But it's a lot more than that, right? I had a former student that got A+, and she actually became a network analyst, right? She didn't have a specific network certification, but A+ is just a foundation. I had students that become server administrators, students that became cybersecurity analysts, right? Junior cybersecurity analysts, just off of having A+. Now, the probability of those things happening for you are low. Most likely, you will be in some type of support or a help desk role, but there's a lot of different opportunities out there. Another thing is this, if you didn't know this, for almost all government and military roles, this isn't a nice to have, it is a requirement, right? So the Department of Defense, specifically the government, has a set of requirements that you have to be compliant with, and having A+ is one of those, right? Also, A+ now is a lot more expansive and a lot more complex. It's not just, as simple as hardware and software. It's everything that goes into those two. So it's literally hundreds 2 to 300 different topics inside of the A plus exam. So you're going to be talking about SaaS, virtualization, security, and not just PC repair. There's even some AI and automation stuff in there as well. It literally covers every sector of tech that you can think of. Another thing is A plus as of right now on Indeed or on LinkedIn is actually the #1 certification that is mentioned. And if it's not mentioned, the skills that you're supposed to learn inside of A plus are mentioned inside of those different job descriptions. And another thing, just for you personally, it's going to prove that you can, start something and finish it. So to get certified, to be honest, you got to be disciplined. It's not just knowledge. You got to be disciplined. You got to sacrifice some stuff, time, the game, Netflix, and all other types of bullshit that's not going to get you to where you want to get to, right? So not too long ago, I had a single mom, right? She was a single mom, and she had 3 boys. 3, were they teenagers? 2 of them was teenagers. I think one of them was like in middle school, right? And she got A plus. She went through the program, got A plus, and she told me that was her first time starting, like pretty much since her kids had been born, starting something and finish it and seeing it through, right? And after that, she actually got hired about 6 or 7 weeks after that, after getting A plus, because it showed her like, okay, the opportunity, I can actually do what I say I can do, right? And another thing is just the skills that you'll learn, right? I'll go a lot deeper in this in future videos, but right now we just kind of talk about a quick overview of some of the things that you'll learn. So the main overarching thing that you're gonna learn in A plus is gonna be troubleshooting, right? Troubleshooting is a way of thinking. Troubleshooting is the way that you will get to the bag. Troubleshooting means that you are a problem solver. People that can solve problems make the most money. If you can solve a problem, quickly, efficiently, in a way that makes sense for you and the company, you're gonna make some money, man. And this troubleshooting is pivotal inside and outside of the exam room, right? So when it comes to certifications, when it comes to jobs, when it comes to all these different things, you have to make sure that you're proficient at critical and analytical thinking and being able to problem solve, like I said. So another thing is like overall, you will become just a better, problem solver is one. I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. Listen, the second thing that you need, that you going. Oh, that's what I'm back on the train. I'm back on the train. Another thing is, just being technically fluent, right? So you will understand tech at every layer, whether it's the operating system, networks, software, hardware, security. You will understand what happens at every point, right? And another thing is you will be able to translate the technical part to your manager, to your coworkers, to your peers, to the job interviewer, right? And that's really crucial for getting a job. If you're working in support, if you're working in help desk, if you're even in sales, you have to know how to speak in a way to where somebody that's not technical, somebody that's not tech savvy would be able to understand it, right? Another thing is this. There's a bunch of different jobs. I already named some, but the probability, right? Let's go with the most probable job that you'll land. You could become an IT support specialist. You can do desktop support, field service technician, help desk analyst, or IT operations, that type of stuff, right? And even some junior system administrator and network support roles. Now, as of right now, factually and statistically, people that have A plus make anywhere from $50,000 to $65,000 within 6 to 12 months of getting their certification. That's without no degree, right? In their first opportunity, within 1 year, they're making 50 to 65K. Now, there's a lot of people, probably you listening to this, it took you years. You know, I talk to people that have been doing stuff for years and they're making less than 50K. If this hurts your feelings, if it sounds great to you, but if you're making less than 50K, man, if you want to make yourself feel good, it's cool. But I know it's a struggle. Shit costs money, man. Newsflash. So if you're making less than 50K and you got a family, you're fucked. So I would advise that you get some skills and you can get those skills with A plus. Now, A plus, right? How difficult is it? You know, it's not easy. It's not easy, but it's not, you know, like physics either or rocket science. It's not easy, right? But with the right mindset, with the right training, you can definitely make sure that you either pass on the first try or get as close as possible. So if you don't know nothing about the A plus is a 2-part exam, which includes or increases the difficulty. So you got to pass the first part and the second part to be fully A plus certified. So if you just pass one part, don't pass the other part, you are not A plus certified, right? So each exam has a maximum of 90 questions. It's a mix of multiple choice and performance-based questions. What makes it really super hard isn't a word I like to use, but what makes it a little bit more difficult is just the volume of information, not the complexity of the exam, but just how much shit is really on there. Like every topic that you can think of in tech is going to come up on the exam, right? So what I always, you know, recommend to my students is that you do home labs, repetition, and just holding yourself accountable. I'm going to study this amount of time. I'm going to take the certification on this day, so on and so forth, right? So not too long ago, I actually had a valet driver. He was valeting for damn near 20 years, like a valet driver, you know, picking cars up, dropping them off, parking them, and he didn't consider himself technical at all. And, you know, he passed A plus, Network plus, and Security plus in less than 3 months, right? And he did that by, you know, following, you know, my guidance, my mentorship, and only, you know, really studying for maybe an hour or two a day, right? So as far as what you should do now, right? Is A plus worth it? That's up to you. Let me know in the comments, right? But do not let YouTube comments convince you to skip this. Do not. You need the foundational stuff. You need a win. You need to start. And this could be, you know, a great start for you, right? And another thing is I would say start sooner today, preferably than later. You know, the A plus may not be Security plus, it may not be the sexiest, I guess, but it is the stairway to everything else, you know, to, like I said, Network plus, Security plus, cybersecurity, wherever you're trying to end up at, right? AI, automation, wherever you're trying to end up at, this is the first step. So if you are looking for somewhere to, you know, really start, what certification can I get first? This may be a good place. Now that we know why we should get A plus, tell me when you're going to get it. All right. So we're going to use this video as accountability tool. We're going to use this video as a bullshit meter, right? So if you're not full of shit, make sure that you put in the comments a date when you're going to take A plus and when you're going to pass it, right? Also, let me know if you're not taking A plus. What certification are you working on? Do you already have A plus? Are you getting a Cisco certification? Are you getting Security plus? Are you getting CEH? Are you getting CCNA? What certification are you working on right now? And what do you think it's going to do for you? Other than that, remember, the last cohort of the Zero to IT Hero program is going to be October 6th. So if you want to rock out with your best buddy, your favorite mentor in this tech game, make sure that you fill out the application in the description below. Other than that, I'll see you in class. Hey gang, today we're gonna go over the Google IT Support Professional Certificate. Just straight off the bat, straight off the jump, the Google IT Support Professional Certificate actually isn't a certificate at all. It's actually a free course that you can go through. And what this video is for is just to see if it would be a good fit for you. So I break down what the course is, who it's for, and then by the end of this video, you'll be able to make a decision on if this is for you. So why you should listen to me if you've never seen me before, I'm Rob. I'm originally from Detroit, Michigan. I am a former U.S. Army Staff Sergeant that now helps people just like you get IT certifications and awesome tech careers. So I've been doing this for almost 2 decades. I have over 15,000 students taught, have 12 industry certifications, have an MBA in information technology, and I'm an all-around good guy. So before I get into anything, as always, I want to thank all of my current students, all my previous students, and all of my future students in the Zero to IT Pro program. I'll get into that a little bit later. And I also want to give a huge shout out and thanks to all of the channel members. If you want to become a channel member, all you got to do is click that join button that's close to the subscribe button. In the channel membership, for career advice, life advice, tips, and any live training that I've ever done is always reserved for channel members. That's usually the first step that people take just to get a deeper look into who I am, what I do, and then they become a part of our actual training. Now, in the next couple of slides, we're going to be talking about the Google IT Support Certificate and who it's for. And I'm going to go through some practice questions to help you to see if this is a good course for you to start and if it's necessary for you to do. All right, so the Google IT Support Professional Certificate is for entry-level certification for people that's looking to get in the help desk, IT support, system admins, or interested in networking, operating systems, security, and automation. Now, on your own, it usually takes people 3 to 6 months to complete the actual course. So who is the course actually for? So the course is offered for free through Google and is for expiring IT support specialists, help desk technicians, system administrators, network technicians, and just career changers. This is a super entry level course. Now, I will say this. All education is great. All education is awesome. But will this course, the Google IT support course that's offered by Google for free, get you a job? No, most likely not. Now, will it teach you some stuff? Of course. Will it give you a good barometer of what you're good at, what you're not good at? Yeah. But will it get you a job? No. Is this something that you will put on your resume? No. But it is a free education, and education is a good thing. So the requirements, there aren't any really requirements. There's just, if you got an email address and you want to do it, you can do it. But there are a couple different things that are covered. And these, I will say, are, pillars of tech. So troubleshooting and customer support, networking fundamentals, operating systems and system admin, security fundamentals, and automation tools and scripting. Now, after this, like I said, we'll go straight into some questions and answers. I'll read the question, let you guys look at the answers, and then together we'll come up with what the answer is, and I'll explain to you why that is the answer. You ready? Let's get to it. Number one, this is going to be from one of the domains. Let's just see how you do. Now, I'll be honest. These questions that I created are much, much more difficult than the questions that are in the course. And I do that on purpose because if you can get these right, most likely you do not need to go through the course. If you get these questions right, you do not need to go through the Google IT support course. So let's go. A company's customer support team reports that multiple employees are experiencing slow internet speeds and frequent disconnects while using cloud-based applications. The affected users are located in different office buildings, and other employees in the same areas are not experiencing any network issues. The IT support team checks the network logs and finds that affected users' devices have high packet loss and frequent DHCP lease renewals. After further investigation, a technician discovers that all affected devices are using the same outdated network adapter driver. While users with no issues have recently updated their network drivers, some users insist that they haven't changed any settings. And one user claims that the issue started after a recent Windows update. What is the best course of action to resolve this issue? I'll give you guys some time. You can look over the answers, maybe reread the question, and then figure out what you think is the best course of action and what the best answer is. Three, two, one. So the best course of action would be to update the affected user's network adapter drivers to the latest version and then test connectivity afterwards. Updating the network adapter drivers resolves compatibility issues that may have been introduced by the Windows update or outdated drivers. Now, once again, you may be asking yourself, where these questions came from. I created these questions myself, and I actually have 4,000 practice questions just like this for more complex exams such as A+, Network Plus, Security Plus, CSSP, CEH, certifications that can actually land you a job. So if you want access to those, the link is in the description and you can get access. A system administrator needs to quickly check which processes are consuming the most CPU on a Linux server experiencing high resource usage. The administrator wants to use a command line tool that provides a real-time interactive view of system performance, allowing them to sort processes by CPU and memory usage dynamically. Which of the following Linux commands would best achieve this goal? Three, two, one. Now, what would achieve that goal the best is that command right there is going to provide an interactive real-time view of CPU and memory usage. So the top command allows administrators to monitor processes in real time and sort by CPU or memory usage, making it the most effective tool for troubleshooting high resource usage. A remote worker reports that they are unable to connect to their company's VPN. The IT support team verifies that the user's internet connection is working, the VPN credentials are correct, the company's VPN server is operational. However, when the technician runs tracervpn.company.com, the output shows the connection stalls at the user's home router and does not reach the corporate VPN gateway. The user recently switched to a new internet service provider, and their router's firmware was last updated 3 years ago. What is the most likely cause of the issue? Three, two, one. So most likely, the user's home router does not support the VPN protocol being used. If you got an older router, it probably doesn't support certain protocols that have been updated. That's why the firmware, right? So the firmware is the software that the device came with. And if you haven't updated that firmware, a lot of protocols and a lot of services may not work. A company has implemented a new security policy requiring all employees to use endpoint protection software. After deployment, several users report that they can no longer access certain websites, including file sharing services and social media platforms. The IT team confirms that the internet connection is fully functional, and disabling the endpoint protection software restores access to the blocked sites. Which of the following is the most likely reason users are experiencing this issue? Three, two, one. Most likely, the endpoint protection software includes a web filtering feature that blocks certain categories of websites. Many endpoint protection solutions include web filtering to block high risk or non-work related sites. A user complains that their Windows 10 laptop has become significantly slower over the past month, with frequent application crashes and high disk usage. The IT support team checks Task Manager and finds that the disk usage metric is consistently at 100%, even when no major applications are running. Further investigation reveals that Windows Update is failing and a background process called service host sysmain is consuming excessive disk resources. The technicians suspect that a Windows feature is misbehaving and must take action to improve performance. What is the best solution to resolve the issue? Three, two, one. So the best thing to do would be disable sysmain, formerly known as superfetch, in services and restart the system. A superfetch is a Windows service that optimizes application performance, but on some systems, it can cause excessive disk usage. An employee accidentally deleted an important spreadsheet stored in a network drive that is configured with daily backups. However, the user is unable to find the deleted file in the Windows recycle bin, and the IT team confirms that no recent backups exist due to an automated failure in the backup system. What is the best immediate step the IT team should take to recover the file? So how are you guys doing so far? We are 6 questions in. Have we gotten all the questions right? Have we gotten it wrong? And once again, these questions are way harder, way harder than the questions that are in the Google IT support course. And I wasn't going to do it, but I'm going to do it at the end. I'll let you know if I think that if the course is worth it. By the end, you should know for yourself if you think it's worth it or not. But I'll let you know, because once again, the Google IT support certificate is just a course. It's not necessarily a certificate. I mean, you can get a printout, but it's not a certificate that an employer or a hiring manager will really care about, to be honest. Now, since I'm providing you value, took time out of my day, took time away from my family and the people I care about to give you this value, all I ask you to do is to like this video and comment below. Let me know if you think this certification is worth it, if it's not worth it. And if it's not worth it, what is your plan of action? What certification do you think is worth it? And what certification are you going to be working for or working towards? 3, 2, 1. Use the previous versions feature in Windows to restore an earlier copy of the file. Windows previous version, a feature of shadow copies, allows users to restore earlier file versions without needing a full backup. A company uses Google Cloud Platform virtual machines to host its internal applications. An IT technician receives reports that a web server running on a GCP VM is unreachable. The technician successfully pings the VM's internal IP address, but when they try to access the web application, the connection times out. The firewall logs show no drop packets, but a curl test reveals that port 80 is closed on the VM. What is the most likely cause of the issue? Three, two, one. The web server application is not running on the virtual machine. If port 80 is closed, which is what runs the internet basically, the web server process is not running, meaning the application is not serving traffic. A department recently installed a new network printer and employees are reporting delayed print jobs and missing documents. When checking the print queue, the IT technician notices that jobs are getting stuck in a queue for extended periods before finally printing. After testing, they find that the issue only affects employees using Windows 11, while those using Windows 10 print without any delay. What is most likely the cause of this issue? Three, two, one. The Windows 11 clients are using an incompatible print driver. If you don't have the right driver, it's not going to work. So print drivers can cause delays or failed print jobs on specific operating systems. A user reports that they are unable to log into their company-issued laptop, receiving a too many failed login attempts error. Error message. The IT team checks the Active Directory logs and finds that the user's account was locked due to multiple incorrect password attempts. The account lockout policy enforces a 5-attempt limit, but the user insists that they only tried once. Further investigation shows that the same account is being used on a different device that is repeatedly failing authentication. What is the best step to resolve this issue? Three, two, one. So the best step is just check for forgotten session on another device that may be using old credentials. A stale login sessions on another device can repeatedly attempt to authenticate using old credentials, triggering an account lockout. A software developer needs to install a dual boot system on their work laptop, allowing them to run both Windows 10 and Ubuntu Linux. However, when they attempt to create a new partition using Windows Disk Management tool, they receive an error message stating that there is not enough available space, despite the fact that the C drive has over 100 gigabits of free space. Running the check disk utility does not resolve the issue, and the system remains unable to allocate the required space for the Ubuntu installation. The IT support technician suspects that certain system files are preventing the partition from being resized. Which of the following is the most likely cause of this issue? Three, two, one. There are unmovable system files, whether it's page files or more critical system files, and those are preventing partition resizing. Certain system files in Windows, such as page file and hibernation files, cannot be automatically relocated, preventing the system from shrinking the partition. A Linux system administrator is configuring a shared directory for a team of software developers. The team members need full access to modify and delete files within the directory, but the administrator discovers that some users can only read files and cannot edit them. Running that command on the shared directory returns the following permissions. The affected users belong to the developers group, yet they cannot make changes to the files in the directory. Some users claim that they were able to edit files a few days ago, but now the permissions seem to have changed unexpectedly. What is the most likely cause of this issue? Three, two, one. The directory lacks write permissions for the group, preventing modifications. The group developers only has read and execute permissions, meaning users can open files but cannot edit or delete them. A company's IT support team receives multiple complaints that some employees cannot access the internet, while others have no issues. The IT team runs ipconfig/all on an affected Windows machine and finds that the device has an IP address in the 169 range. The DHCP server logs show that the maximum number of allowed DHCP leases has been reached, meaning no IP addresses are available. The network administrator checks the configuration and sees that the DHCP pool is limited to 100 addresses, despite there being over 150 devices in the office. What is the best way to resolve this issue and restore network connectivity? Three, two, one. So if you increase the pool size or the number of IP addresses available, you should be able to accommodate all the devices. The issue occurs because the DHCP server has run out of available IP addresses, so expanding the DHCP pool ensures all devices receive a valid IP. A junior administrator working in Google Cloud Platform accidentally grants owner permissions to all users within the organization, instead of restricting it to a specific team. This mistake allows every employee to create, delete, and modify cloud resources, creating a major security risk. After realizing the mistake, the IT security team revokes the excessive permissions immediately, but they need to prevent similar misconfigurations from happening in the future. Which of the following is the best way to ensure proper access control in Google Cloud IAM? Three, two, one. So if you apply the principle of least privilege, you ensure that people only have access to the things that they need access to. So the janitor doesn't have full control of the system. I think now is an awesome time to shout out the sponsor of this training and this course that I created just for you guys. The Zero to IT Pro program is a program that helps people just like you get the most in-demand skills and certifications in the industry in as little as 90 days. The Zero to IT Pro program is the first step to the Zero to IT Hero program, which helps people just like you get an awesome tech career. Zero to IT Pro, get the certs. Zero to IT Hero, we help you get the actual job. At a bare minimum, you need to like this video and comment. If you want help further from me and my team, you can look in the description and you can actually enroll into the Pro program right now. And the Zero to IT Hero program, our next cohort is starting in September, which means before September, you have to be in the Pro program and pass all the requirements there. Other than that, let's get back to the training. A company follows the 3-2-1 backup strategy, but recently suffered a ransomware attack that encrypted both their primary files and local backup. The IT team realized that their offsite backups were not updated for the last 2 months, leading to a major data loss incident. What is the best way to ensure a more resilient backup strategy? Three, two, one. So the best thing is to implement an air-gapped backup system that is disconnected from the network. Air-gapped backup are physically disconnected from the network, making them immune to ransomware and a lot of other attacks. An IT help desk technician receives an urgent ticket from an executive who is unable to access their email right before an important client meeting. The executive is frustrated, stating that they don't have time for troubleshooting and demanding that IT fix the issue immediately. The technician remotely connects to the user's computer and finds that the email application is stuck on connecting to server. While the user's internet browser is working fine, checking the system logs, the technician notices that the email client has not been updated in over 6 months. And a recent company-wide security update required all email clients to be on the latest version to connect to the email server. Given the urgency of the situation, what is the best course of action for the technician? Three, two, one. So the best thing would be to acknowledge the executive's frustration, quickly apply the required email update, and offer a temporary webmail alternative in case the update takes time. So first thing you want to do is definitely acknowledge the person being upset and then de-escalate the tension while providing a quick and practical solution to the problem. All right, gang, that's it. That's all. If you are interested in enrolling to the Zero to IT program, you can do that below. Now, I promise you guys that I would tell you if I thought the Google IT support course was worth it. I would say hell no, to be honest. I think you should be working more towards things that actually will lead to more money, better job opportunities, and this isn't necessarily one of those things. Now, this is awesome as a supplement to whatever you're doing, but I think if you're looking for your first certification, you may want to go after A+ or another certification that can actually lead to some job opportunities. Other than that, I'll see you in class. All right, gang, today we're going to talk about Domain 2 of the CompTIA A+ Core 1. First things first, if you haven't done so, make sure you watch part 1 of the masterclass. This is part 2, so make sure that you watch part 1 before you come here. Just understand that networking is one of the top 3 skills every tech professional needs to know. So just pay super close attention to everything. This domain ties into the actual certification and in real world troubleshooting. So it's only 3 things that are required for you to attend this here training. Number 1, you need something to take notes with. Number 2, you need a functional brain. And number 3, you need the ability to sit down and shut the hell up. We ready? Let's get into it. Now, you may be asking, who the hell am I? Why you should listen to me? Well, I'm an Army vet. I got 2 twin girls. I got 20 years in tech, over 12 certifications, got an MBA in this stuff. I've taught more than 15,000 students with the Master IT Training Company, and I am the best instructor this side of the Mississippi. Now, what I want you guys to do right now for me is to tell me where you guys are from, where you are right now, and what's making you want to get into tech. Just take a couple seconds and put that in the comments for me. I want to know where you're from, where you live right now, and what is making you want to get into tech and get certified. So there's a couple basic networking concepts. You got to understand the fundamentals and just the terminology. So there's different types of network setups. You can have a LAN, which is a local area network. You can have a WAN, which is a wide area network. That would be the internet. And then a LAN would pretty much be your home network. A PAN is a personal area network, which is just a bunch of different mobile devices that are connected over short distances. Then you have a MAN, which is a metropolitan area metropolitan area network. Just means that it covers one city. And then you got a WLAN, which is a wireless local area network. Now, most models are going to be client server models, meaning that somebody provides the services, which would be the server, and somebody receives the services, which would be the client, right? So in a client server model, the client requests resources, access to stuff, and then the actual server gains permission and gives you permission so you can gain access to these things. Now, another thing is packets, right? Packets and protocols. So the information, the stuff, the emails, the bits and the bytes that are going across the actual network is referred to as packets. And there are protocols that govern all of these different packets, all this different stuff. And protocols is just a fancy name for rules and regulations, right? So all of these packets are transmitted over the network and they contain essential information. So you want to make sure that you're using a proper protocol so it gets to where it needs to get to. Most of the time, this stuff is automatic, and all these things happen behind the scenes, so you don't have to really worry about them. But you need to know certain protocols, certain port numbers, and the way that packets travel across the network. One of the basic concepts that you need to know is something called the OSI model, and that is a logical representation of the way information flows through the network. All right. Now let's talk about some of the devices that you're going to run into when it comes to networking. So you got routers, you got switches, you got access points, you got a bunch of different devices that you need to be aware of, right? Let me get myself out the way. So, oh shit, we're gonna go back. We are here. All right, so we got routers, switches, access points. So there's a bunch of different devices, but these are the main ones that you need to know. And this is a super basic level, right? So a router just directs traffic between networks. All right. We're on my network. I want to go to ESPN, which is a different network, and we will go through a bunch of different routers to get to ESPN, which is going to be on a different network. Now a switch, it actually connects devices all in one network, right? So if you want to go from switch to switch, you want to go from switch to laptop, you will do all that stuff inside your internal network. Now, access points are just something that are simple, and it just extends the distance and the radius and the access point to your network, right? So you can have a repeater, you can have an extender, and it just makes sure that no matter where you are in your house, no matter where you are in your neighborhood, so on and so forth, you can actually access what you're trying to access. Another one is a modem. So that's going to be internet access directly from your ISP. Most routers are modems as well. So it's a router and a modem together. Then you have a firewall, which is going to be set up. It can be set up on your router. It can be set up on your laptop. It could be a software firewall. It could be a hardware firewall. But a firewall just simply keeps all the bullshit out, right? Anything that you don't want on your network, it won't get on your network because of your firewall. So it filters out all of the stuff you don't want and make sure that all of the stuff that you do want ends up on network. Now, there's a couple different standards, frequencies, and security protocols that we need to be aware of, especially when it comes to Wi-Fi. So anything that you see that says 802.11, when it comes to protocols or anything like that, is going to be dealing with Wi-Fi. And there's different standards, there's different levels to Wi-Fi, going from A all the way up to AX. Now, depending on what your setup is, depending on what devices you have, depending on what's going on, depends on which level and which, whether A, B, D, AC, AX, N, whatever, what you will actually use on the network. Now, when it comes specifically to the actual exam, we need to understand the difference between 2.4 and 5 gigahertz stuff, right? So 2.4 gigahertz is usually for a bigger area and bigger distances than 5 gigahertz, right? But the only thing is, it's a lot slower and it's a lot more crowded than 5 gigahertz. And 5 gigahertz is faster, but it's usually performed a lot better and a shorter range, right? So going back to the Wi-Fi standards, A will be one of the oldest ones, while AX will be one of the newest ones, right? So AX, actually 802.11ax, covers Wi-Fi 6, and it's one of the newest standards, but it's still going to appear on the actual exam. So the biggest thing is just understanding 2.4 gigahertz, 5 gigahertz, and does 802.11a, does that work on 2.4 or 5 gigahertz? Does 802.11n, does that work on 2.4 gigahertz or 5 gigahertz? And just basic Wi-Fi troubleshooting is another thing that you have to make sure that you are proficient in. So basically, you need to know how Wi-Fi works, what's the best standard for your given scenario, and how to secure everything, right? So most of the times, WPA2 is going to be the strongest encryption, right? As far as reliability and actually making things happen. So you got to make sure that you know how it works, know what standards you need to use, and know how to secure things. Because you want to make sure that the data integrity, meaning that when I send this stuff exactly the way it was when I had it, that's going to be the way it is when you see it. You want to make sure that this shit is the same across the board for each user. And you want to also make sure that there's no unauthorized access, right? Only people that we want on the network, only people that we want to see this stuff, is going to be the people that's going to see this stuff. Make sense? All right, so now let's talk about some network services. So here is just a few network services, but these are foundational things. These are the things that we have to know, right? So we need to know DHCP, DNS, and NAT, network address translation. So make sure that whenever you see the acronym, you know what it stands for, you know what it does, you know how to fix it if it's broken or if it's missing, right? So network services and just network troubleshooting in general, you have to know the different services, the ports that they run on, and what the differences between these things are, right? So DNS, for example, that's going to translate a IP address to a website name. So every website has an IP address. That's how the network figures out where to send stuff, right? But it's easier to remember past techsearch.com than it is to remember 198.2.1.1, right? Or whatever the IP address is. So the IP address is just the logical address, and DNS simply translates that IP address to a website name. Now, if your DNS server isn't working or if it's something messed up, a lot of times if you put in website name, it's not going to come up because it can't figure out what IP address is tied to that website. So it's just going to come up with nada, or address can't be found, or broken, or you're going to some type of error message. Another thing is DHCP. So we already talked about IP addresses, and what DHCP does, which is Dynamic Host Control Protocol. So what that does is it actually automatically assigns IP addresses to devices on your network. Then the DNS, which is domain name server, that's what translates IP addresses to website names. Then last but not least, network address translation, or NAT. All that does is it makes sure that your private IP address, right? So your private IP address when you're on your network can be routed across the public network, right? So when you're on your network, you have a private IP address. When you leave your network, you have a public IP address. You can only route public addresses, all right? So network address translation translates your private IP address to a public IP address so it can go to other networks, other websites, and leave your actual network, right? Another thing that you want to be familiar with is TCP versus UDP, all right? TCP versus UDP. TCP makes sure that things get to where they're supposed to go to, right? UDP does not give a damn. Email runs on TCP. YouTube runs on UDP. So TCP cares if things get there. If I send you a fucking email, I want to make sure that it gets here, right? But if I'm watching, I don't know, reruns of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or something on YouTube, I don't give a damn if it skips a beat or something, right? Because I can just ask YouTube, I can refresh, I can just ask for it again, right? So usually streaming, anything that's streaming is UDP, or anything that has to make it to where it needs to make it to, like email, is going to be TCP. And just a couple different ports that you guys need to know. You need to know DHCP, you need to know DNS, you need to know these different networking services ports. So every service, every protocol works on a port, and that port has a assigned port number. This is all logical, right? So it's not a physical port that you can see, it's a logical port. For example, DNS runs on port 53. Email protocol that is super popular called POP3 runs on 110. HTTP and HTTPS, where HTTP is not secure, then HTTPS, when you're on a website and you see the little lock, HTTPS is secure. The unsecure version of the internet runs on port 80, while the secure version of the internet runs on port 443. Now, there's literally thousands of different ports, right? These are just some of the ones that come to mind. These are just some of the ones that you may need to know, right? But I will say this, when you're studying, when you are doing the things you need to do, my students have found that it's about 50 to maybe 75 ports that you really not even necessarily need to know, but that may come up, right? So when you see thousands of ports, you're not gonna have to know every port. As you study, as you keep on going through different things, you'll start seeing the same shit over and over again. It's okay, I probably need to know this, right? All right. So now I want to talk a little bit about different cabling, right? So this information, this data needs to be traversed, housed, moved through different types of cables, right? So if it's Ethernet, if it's fiber, no matter what it is, it needs some type of cable to ensure that it goes to its destination, right? So most of the cabling that you're going to see inside your home that's going directly to devices, or if you're at your job, it's going directly to a device. Most times it's going to be a category 5 or a category 6 cable. Okay, so depending on what you're doing, these speeds can vary drastically. You know, fiber, of course, is way faster than Cat 5. Now, when it comes to Cat 5, there's a connector that goes on the end of Cat 5, and that's going to be called a RJ45. It kind of looks like an old little telephone connector, but it's a little bit bigger. So that's what you terminate with, or that's what you close the cable ending with, right? So one of the biggest hurdles, one of the biggest things when it comes to Cat 5, one of the limitations is that if it's unshielded, which means that if you lay it on top of something, if there's any type of interference, any type of vibration, any type of radio frequency that can potentially penetrate that cable, it may mess up the data that's going through it. An unshielded twisted pair. Now, when it comes to Cat 5 that is shielded, it's wrapped around. It has things that block off any type of radio frequency or any type of vibration. Then that's going to be a lot more sustainable than something that is unshielded, right? Now, when it comes to fiber, fiber is usually what's going to be what you're going to be feeding off of from the main source, the main hub, right? So most of us don't have fiber going directly to our home, right? We may have be connected to a fiber connection, but it's probably most likely there isn't an actual fiber connection going to our home. Although there are neighborhoods that are starting to get fiber, and that is amazing because you get gigs and gigs and gigs of data at a time, which makes internet streaming faster. It makes everything that you do so much faster. Now, like I said before, there's different type of connectors when it comes to cables. So for the Cat 5 and Cat 6, it's going to be RJ45, while the telephone cable would be an RJ11. And like I said, different categories can be Cat 5, Cat 6, Cat 7. And just like the radio frequency stuff I was talking about earlier, it depends on what you're trying to do, which one of these would make the most sense for your application, right? Now, one of the things I want you guys to do is to tell me this in the comments. When it comes to fiber, there's a single mode and there's a multi-mode. What is single mode best for, and what is multi-mode best for? I'll even narrow it down a little bit more to give you a fucking hint. So is single mode better for distance or speed? Is multi-mode better for distance or speed? Put that in the comments and I'll tell you if you're a damn dummy or not. All right, so another thing that comes with networking, one of the biggest things is IP addressing, right? So we talked about this a little bit earlier, but there is 2 different versions right now. So you got version 4, then you got version 6. So version 4 IP addresses have run out. So most devices now are going to be running off of a version 6 address, and that's pretty much all you need to know for that. So like we told you earlier, like we talked about earlier, the difference between public and private IP addresses. So public IP addresses are unique, right? And they are routable across the internet, while private IP addresses are only used inside of local networks. So you can't give every device inside your local network the same IP address, because it's going to have an error and one of the devices isn't going to be able to actually work because it already knows, like, hey man, I already got this address. Just the same thing why two houses on your block or two houses in your neighborhood won't have the same address because mail and information would get messed up. So when it comes to going across the internet, when it goes to hooking up in your network, it's a couple things that you need to make sure things actually work. So you need an IP address, right? Which is going to have your IP address, your subnet mask, and your gateway. Your gateway is what actually gets you out of your network. It's a gateway to another network. And then the subnet mask just determines how much of the actual IP address is for the network and which part is available for, host devices. So how much it is, or how many of these IP addresses belong to the network, and then how many devices can actually go on this network. So you got a network portion, then you have a host portion. The host portion is where the devices go, and then by subnetting and give things a subnet mask, it allows you to be a lot more efficient with IP addresses. Instead of just giving a bunch of IP addresses away and wasting a bunch of IP addresses, you get the exact amount of IP addresses you need. Now, earlier we also talked about a DHCP, right? DHCP gives you a IP address automatically, right? So let's say that the DHCP server is messed up. Let's say that it ain't working right. You will get an APIPA address. APIPA is just automatic private IP addressing, which just means that, okay, for some reason we couldn't connect to the DHCP server, so let's just give you an IP address but the only thing is you won't be able to connect to any of the resources inside of that network because it's not recognizing your device as part of the network because you didn't get a goddamn IP address, right? And just quick troubleshooting, as I always say, you got to be great at troubleshooting. If you look at the IP address and it starts with 169 or 169, that means that you have an APIPA address, right? Before we go any further, I want you guys to go over to passtechcerts.com and take their free tech career quiz. In a couple minutes, you'll find out which field and tech you should be in and which certifications best align with that field to help you land a job as fast as possible. passtechcerts.com and go over there and take our free tech career quiz. The next thing I want to do is actually show you guys what's possible. I know passing these certifications, getting a good ass job, actually doing the stuff that you want to do can kind of seem impossible. So I want to give you guys some real world examples from real people that have done what you're trying to do right now. So sit back, enjoy this inspiration, and then we'll get to the rest of this training.
The no-nonsense approach to the way that you were communicating and the material that you had on YouTube insofar as the materials that you already had on there, it spoke for itself.
One thing I wanted to ask
is don't feel nervous. Boost up your confidence and go in there like you know you're going to pass. Because if you do that, that's what I did. I changed my motivation and I said, okay, I'm going to pass this. And I walked in there and, I walked into my house because I was testing from home. And I said, okay, I'm going to pass it, and then you pass it. And you don't pass it by a little bit when you do that, you pass it by a lot.
From ITF Plus all the way down to Security Plus inside his course. After the course, I got my first IT job, and so far, so great. A lot of the stuff I'm learning, I learned in the course is being applied to my job. I know not every job will tackle everything, but a lot of stuff is like, hey, I learned about this in this course. I'm like, my manager's like, hey, do you need me to review this with you? I'm like, no, I got it down. So it's helping a lot.
His courses are very straightforward, they're self-paced, and he'll make you fall in love with IT. I promise you, if you are just really motivated about getting IT, Dwayne's your guy, and he won't fail you.
Before the program, I always thought about getting in tech. I consider myself like a knowledgeable end user, but kind of never really knew where to start. About 3 months ago, and now I have 3 certifications, actually 4, because one of them's stackable.
You really simplified what needed to be known. You go over the objectives, and you kind of simplify it and you focus on that. And that's the most important part.
There's a lot of basic foundational stuff that I didn't know.
Exactly.
I'm kind of glad I'm getting like the certificates one by one,
I think maybe doubled my salary unbelievable. It was just like I felt confident I passed because like the questions and stuff, everything just clicking to me like clockwork.
And after watching, when I signed up and I watched your first video, I was like, why nobody didn't explain it to me like this the whole time? Like this just makes everyday sense.
And I liked it a lot. I also like how you explain things. So you explain them very clear, and I think at a speed where it can be, like processed, and you're very down to earth. You don't make people feel stupid.
I learned more about computers in about an hour watching Dwayne's videos. I recommend it.
By yourself, definitely not. I'm sure people could, but I think having a good layout and then also having videos to look at, having information to look at, and then I talk with people in my cohort. We were able to talk and get through things, and I think you start to also have like an accountability partner.
Thank you so much for taking a holistic approach to this thing. You understood that it was much deeper than just getting a certification. You knew that people like me also need to have the services.
All right, let's stop it there because it's gonna keep on going. I put too many damn reviews. I put too many damn reviews on here. But anyway, those are people that was in the Zero to IT Pro program, which is enrolling right now. But I want you guys to go and take the free tech career quiz first. If you love it, if you like it, if it comes back with some results that you love, then we can talk about me helping you go ahead and get into the program. But right now, I want to finish domain 2. That's what we're here for. So let's go ahead and get into the next part, which is going to be talking about network setup, right? So network setup is important. But we're going to just go through some simple stuff, right? So there's going to be a lot of network setup questions on a lot of the CompTIA exams, A+ to be included, Network Plus, Security Plus, and you want to make sure that you understand the basics for sure. So SOHO just stands for Small Office, Home Office. So there's a couple different things that come with network setup. Your name, of course, right? The fancy name for the Wi-Fi password, right? So you go to McDonald's, you see McDonald's Wi-Fi. The fancy name for that is the SSID. So you make sure when you're setting up your network that you give it a name that you can remember, that is something that is easily recognizable, especially if it's going to be a lot of people using it, and make sure that it is secure as possible. So a lot of times, if you're at your home, you can hide your network name so that way your neighbors won't see your network name. Because I know a lot of people try and do like, I'm gonna name some cool shit, FBI surveillance van, and that's usually the shit that people try and hack. But the SSID is the name of the network. So that just stands for Service Set Identifier, and it's a fancy way to say, hey, this is the name of the network. One of the biggest things you have to do, whether you got Verizon, Xfinity, Comcast, whoever you have your internet through, make sure that whatever the default settings are and whatever the default security stuff is on the router, please, you can pause the damn video right now. Please make sure that you change whatever the generic default passwords are for your routers to something else, because you can literally Google the manufacturer. Anyway, I don't want to tell you how to do it, but just make sure that you change stuff just to keep yourself a little bit more secure. All right. But last but not least is port forwarding. So that basically allows you to make sure that a certain device can use a dedicated port for itself, right? So you can allow internal access or external access to specific devices to your network. All right, so we got a couple more things, then we're gonna wrap it up. All right, so network troubleshooting. Troubleshooting is always going to be, what the hell are we talking about? Troubleshooting is going to always be one of those things we're going to come back to, right? So some of the most common stuff is no connectivity. I can't get on the internet. I keep losing the internet. I keep on losing my connection. So whenever that happens, If it's a wired connection, make sure that you check the physical stuff first. We always check the easiest stuff first. I'm not saying that that's going to be what the problem is, but it's going to save you a lot of headache and heartache if you just check the physical stuff first and check the easiest stuff first. Now, if it's not a wired connection, you need to check to make sure that okay, is my Wi-Fi on? Am I trying to connect to the right password or to the right network? Let me try and restart this phone. Let me try and restart this laptop. Let me try and restart this tablet to see if that works. Or is it in airplane mode, right? Other thing is DNS issues. Remember we said that if the DNS isn't working right, it's going to seem like the internet does not work. So if you got DNS issues, then this is going to be pretty rough for you, especially if you're a novice user. You'll think that, the internet is either out or not working. Another thing is slow speeds. That could be for a multitude of reasons. It could be the cheap ass internet you're using. It could be too many people on your network. It could be limitations on your hardware. It could be that your stuff is out of date. So many different things, right? When it comes to networking, there's a couple software tools that you definitely need to be aware of and know how to use. So here's a few. And remember at the beginning, you're supposed to write shit down. So you can also pause. But Ping is one. Tracert is another one. ipconfig is one. NSLookup is one. Ping, just to make sure that you can actually communicate and send packets to stuff that's on your network and outside of your network. Tracert traces the route of routers, right? So if for some reason you can't connect to something, for some reason you can't get to your destination, you can use Tracert because it will literally trace the path that the information is going. All right, ipconfig shows the IP configuration for a device. Then NSLookup is going to look at your DNS and a few other things to make sure that everything is the way it's supposed to be, everything is set up properly, right? Some of the physical things that you need to know or going to run into are going to be cable testers. That's just to make sure that your Cat5 and stuff like that is actually working correctly. You don't have any broken pairs or anything like that. You can also use like a toner probe to actually send a tone down the line. It'll show you if there's any issues or where the other end of that cable actually is. A toner probe comes in really handy if you run into like a server room or something that has nothing that's labeled. A toner probe is really good for that. Another thing is making sure that you understand the troubleshooting steps. So the first step is going to be identifying what the hell is wrong. So identifying the problem and establishing what you think happened and what's going on. So establishing a theory. Third is testing what your theory is. 4 is implementing whatever the hell you think the fix is. You do that. Then after that, you verify functionality, meaning that whatever you're supposed to fix, you fixed it and you didn't break nothing else and everything is good. And last but not least, document everything that you did. So today we talked about basic networking concepts, wireless networking, cabling and networking, version 4 and version 6 addresses, and network troubleshooting. So now we're going to do the infamous one question quiz. Just one question, have you think about it, and then let's see what you think. A remote employee reports that they cannot access any websites while working from home on a company laptop. They confirm that they can successfully ping their home router at 192.168.1.1 and can also ping a public IP address such as 8.8.8.8. However, all attempts to ping domain names like Google.com or Microsoft.com fail. Other devices in home are browsing the internet normally. Based on these symptoms, what is the most likely cause? Is it A, the Ethernet cable is faulty, B, the home router is powered off, C, the laptop has an incorrect or missing DNS configuration, or D, the laptop has assigned itself an APIPA address? So when we in the actual exam room, make sure that you pay attention to that stuff. What's the most likely to cause? What's the first thing we should do? What's the last thing we should do? What's the most expensive? What's the least expensive? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So hopefully you picked C, because remember, Everybody else is rocking out. Everybody else is good. Most likely the DNS is misconfigured. Why do we say that? Because when you put in an actual IP address, stuff comes up. Stuff is working. But when you put in a website name, it's not working. That's because the DNS is misconfigured. Now, this is all I need you to do right now. I need you to do 3 things. Number 1, comment certified if you're going to pass the A+ in the next 30 days. Number 2, make sure that you take the tech career quiz, which your ass already did, but if you didn't, don't worry about it. Maybe you were just too excited. Go take the tech career quiz. And number 3, make sure that you watch part 1 of the master class, which is what the hell you're supposed to do before you can watch this video. But if you didn't, you still have time to redeem yourself. Other than that, I'll see you in class. It doesn't matter if you take an A+, Net Plus, Security Plus, CYSA Plus, Security X. The troubleshooting steps are going to be super important. So I'm going to give you guys a quick sneak peek into a class for the Zero to IT Pro program that's going to help you fully understand the troubleshooting steps for CompTIA exams and also the steps and the thought process that you need to solve any problem in the exam room and on the job. Let's get to it. The first troubleshooting step is just make sure that you identify what the problem is. So you can gather information from logs, system files, and any type of information you can get. You can question users, ask them, hey, when's the last time this worked? Did you do any updates? Did you change anything? Now, you listen to them, but you do not believe them, right? So you trust, but you have to verify whatever they're saying, right? Because they may unintentionally tell you something is wrong, so on and so forth, right? Also identify the symptoms. What does it look like when it's working right? And what is it doing now? Like I said before, determine if anything changed recently, any upgrades, any outages, anything like that, okay? Next thing is try to duplicate the problem. Okay, you said you did XYZ. Let me try to do XYZ and see if that problem arises again. Also, make sure that if it's multiple things that's going on, multiple issues, if it's multiple problems, handle each problem one by one. Because a lot of times, if you solve one problem, it may solve all the other problems, right? And you also don't want to try and, do 4 or 5 things at one time, get confused, or mess something up. Last but not least, just narrow down what the scope of the problem is. Okay, they don't have internet, right? Instead of just trying to figure out everything at once, they can't print. Okay, they can't open up this file. Okay, narrow down what is the actual problem. So the number one thing is to identify the problem. Before I go to the next problem, I'm Rob from itmasterkey.com, and I help students just like you pass tech certs. We actually just moved Master IT and itmasterkey.com to passtechcerts.com. So if you go to itmasterkey.com, Pass Tech Certs is going to come up. And if you just type in passtechcerts.com, that is our new home base. So don't get freaked out if you've been to the site before. That is the place you can go to, one, join our newsletter where you get free advice, free training, free tips every day straight to your email, or if you want to sign up for one of our programs. All right. So the next step is, what is the most probable thing, right? Establish a theory of probable cause. Question the most obvious stuff. That is exactly why when you call a help desk and get pissed off when they say, hey, is it on? Turn it off, turn it back on. Is it plugged into the power? Because believe it or not, a lot of people forget this stuff. A lot of people don't know that stuff. So you have to ask the obvious stuff. You don't ever want to say, oh, they already know this, because most likely they don't know that. All right. Also consider multiple approaches. So you can go from top to bottom, whether you go, the physical layer, or you can start from the software layer, right? So just think about what is the best approach for each problem, right? So whether it's with networking issues, software issues, so on and so forth, just make sure that you kind of think about, okay, what's a couple different approaches I can take. Now, on this part, it may take you quite a bit of research depending on how big of a problem it is, how many users it's affecting, so on and so forth. So there's no time limit on this, but One thing I will say is if you're a newbie, entry level, money on the line, time on the line, if you don't know what the hell you're doing, it's fine to ask your mentor, ask your team lead, ask somebody that's been there longer than you just to figure out, okay, what is wrong? Because trust me, dilly-dallying, trying to figure stuff out, and 3-4 hours later, you still don't know what the hell is going on, it's going to look bad for you, right? So if you can't really figure out and don't even know the next step, then just go ahead and ask somebody else. But when you ask somebody else, make sure that you're taking notes. Make sure that you are paying attention. You can record a video just so the next time that happens, you won't have to worry about having to ask somebody what to do. Number 3, test your theory, right? Test your theory to determine the cause. You know, this step is also pretty much like 2B, I guess you could say, but it's a step on its own. This is still part of the information gathering phase. You haven't necessarily done anything to actually fix the issue just yet. So, you know, once you're confident that you found what the root cause of the problem is, you know, the next step is just to, you know, start preparing to solve the problem. Because the whole thing is you researching all this stuff just to make sure that you are as sure as possible that your hypothesis is right. You know, you just got to educate a guess that, shit, I think this is what's going on. Let me go ahead and try to keep going this route. Because you don't want to, you know, hurry up and your guess, your thought process, what you thought the probable cause was way off, right? You got to start from the beginning again. So this is steps 4 and 5, right? So 1, you want to establish a plan of action. Okay, identify the problem. I know what's going on. Let me establish how I'm going to fix this issue and then actually implement whatever I think my fix is, right? So one of the biggest things is this. If stuff goes left, right? If shit hits the fan and gets over everybody, gets on everybody and on everything, you got to have a plan. Okay, if this messes up, this is how I'm going to roll it back. This is how I'm going to get us back to where we need to be. Whether if that's doing, you know, full backups of systems before you do it, whether that's creating restore points, whether if that's, you know, doing it in a production environment or a simulated environment before you do it in real life. But you want to make sure that you have some type of plan that if whatever you decide to do break something or mess something up, you have a plan to get it back to where it needs to be, right? So a lot of fixes may require reboots, whether that's on a personal device for a user, or you may have to reboot a network drive or restart a server. You need to make sure that depending on what level you're restarting at and who's going to be affected, make sure that everybody's going to be affected knows, right? Just so people won't think the stuff is crazy. So, hey, tomorrow at 6 o'clock, we're going to be restarting the servers, or we're going to be doing server work, or we're going to be patching the server. So you're going to have downtime from this time to that time. You never want that to be a surprise, especially to, you know, higher up people. You may need to download different software, drivers, so on and so forth. And also, if it's just you, it shouldn't be that difficult. But if you're working with a team and different people got their hands on the pod and got their hands in different parts of the fix process, you want to make sure that you have change management. Okay, Rob did X, Y, Z, and then Tim did 1, 2, 3, and then Jenny did so on and so forth, right? So we know that when I had it, things was fine. When Tim had it, things was fine. Then Jenny got it and everything got fucked up, right? So you just want to make sure that you have good change management procedures just so everybody can kind of know, like, okay, everything is fine. Not necessarily to get Jenny in trouble, but just to know, like, okay, it was cool when I was rocking out. It was cool when Tim was rocking out. Jenny, what did you do different? Oh, I, you know, open this port, or I close this port. I did, oh, okay, we see what's going on. And then we can better assess where we messed up at, right? All right, so for this one, it's super important just because you never want somebody been waiting for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour, hours, days, weeks for you to come fix something. And you say, hey, it's fixed, and you leave and it's not working. For whatever reason, it's not working. So you want to verify full system functionality. Just like when you want to buy a car, you want to test drive the damn car, right? Before you leave, okay, let me make sure that everything is working fully, right? When your mechanic does an oil change, does this, and that, they do another test drive just to make sure, like, okay, what I fix is fixed and ain't shit else wrong with this car. So they can't come back and say this happened, that happened, right? So always verify system full functionality, and hopefully the user is around, right? So I was, a double dip or however you want to say it. I will, one, go ahead and verify it on my end. So yeah, it would look like it's working to me. And then whoever owns that device or whatever, bring them in too and say, hey, is this working the way you are accustomed to? Is it okay? I got the green light. Okay. And then get up out of there. Right. And last but not least, especially once you become a team lead or become important at work, which a lot of people kind of don't want to do. But trust me, man, it's a lot of memes, a lot of shit on social media. Like, oh, when you accidentally become important at work, when you if you're not important at work, one, you're also gonna get replaced or fired. So if you're important at work, you'll get promotions, you'll get salary increases, so on and so forth, right? And you'll do what you need to do. All right. So last but not least, make sure that you document everything. This is gonna make it easier for you the next time you run across this issue to make sure, okay, next last time I did, all I had to do was follow these 7 steps and it worked. And also, like I said, if you listen to this channel, if you've been following this channel, you're on an ascension, right? So you might have come in at entry level, then you may have been like mid tier, now you're upper tier. So you want to make sure that when you have junior people and people underneath you, you have a SOP, standard operating procedures, or you have, just a guide for them. Like, hey, look at this. Hey, Rob, I'm having this issue. I don't have to train you on shit. Here go the steps right here, right? So you have those to not only help you, but to also help your team to be more efficient and to be a lot better at what you're doing.